wac.primegov.com/login.
Okay.
Right. Better.
I got it. Wait a minute. It's in my history.
Okay.
Okay. And John.
All right, this is Jennifer Swan. Thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. It's around 2 o'clock. It does appear that I have all the commission members in PrimeGov. Mr. Chair, whenever you're ready to start the meeting.
Excellent, perfect, thank you. First off, thank you for all of the participants that have joined us today. This is the June 3rd, 2020 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. I believe meeting procedures were, oh, I'm sorry. I guess we need to call the meeting to order and take roll call first. So with that being said, can we go ahead and call this to order and call roll for our fellow commissioners?
Yes, thank you. Commission Person Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commander Schultz.
Who? Commissioner?
Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
Commissioner Zachritz.
Present.
That is a quorum.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, so item 1B, meeting process. The procedures for this video conference were published in the agenda, and I would ask anybody that is going to be participating in today's conference call that they review the specifics noted in that particular section. A couple things that I will note as far as certificates of appropriateness. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the HP officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And if you have any questions, please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. As for appeals to the Board of Adjustment, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. One thing that we will ask today, when you are called to speak, please indicate your name and address, press *6 to unmute and be heard. And with that, we can move on to item number 2, which would be any information from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer.
Yes, this is Katie Friddle. I'm the Historic Preservation Officer, staff in the Planning Department. And the item you'll see on your agenda is to inform everyone that starting July 1, we will be distributing meeting packets electronically. This is to save paper, save trees, save money, and kind of move ourselves into the 21st century. So we'll be distributing them electronically to commission and committee members, and then also sending them via email to applicants, to other interested parties. If you have difficulty with receiving an application or a packet via email or accessing it online, then by all means contact staff and we'll work with you to address that. But we will not be, as a practice, printing mass quantities of applications and staff reports to mail out.
Finally.
The other thing I just, I'm sorry?
Finally.
Yes. One other thing I wanted to just remind everyone as you're listening, and this is in the agenda, but just so that folks who have called in or have joined the Zoom meeting know, if the meeting is interrupted or we lose a connection for any reason, we will try for the next 30 minutes or so to reconnect. If we are not able to reconnect within those 30 minutes, then all of the remaining items on the agenda will automatically be moved to the July 1 meeting of the HP Commission. And that's all.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. I think all of the commissioners are thrilled that we will not be receiving those packets anymore. Probably all of the citizens of Oklahoma City with the amount of paper that we use. So that's definitely a good thing going forward. Let's see, item number 3, we need to accept the minutes, or we need to discuss accepting the minutes from the previous meeting. Question to my fellow commissioners, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting, the May 6th meeting? And if so, do we have a motion to approve or
Move, accept the
not?
minutes.
Perfect.
I think we talked at once there.
Perfect. So we have a motion to accept the minutes by Commissioner Brown. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Ann Zacharitz.
Excellent. Motion moved by Alan Brown, second by Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Jennifer. Commissioner Schultz, it looks like you still need to vote in PrimeGov, please.
I don't have the, oh, there it is. No. I don't have the voting.
Linda, you might try pressing escape so that your Zoom is not taking up your full screen. You have that other PrimeGov window open where you originally logged in.
Oh, there. Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you all for voting.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll move on to the code enforcement report, item 4A. Katie, do we have anything to report there?
I don't have anything special to report. I don't believe we have anyone from code enforcement joining us this afternoon. As always, if you have questions about a specific item on the code enforcement report, you can follow up with staff or contact the city's action center. If you see an actual citation number listed, then that tells you it has progressed from a notice of violation to a citation, and you can reference that citation number when you contact either code enforcement staff or HP staff, action center, et cetera.
Perfect. Moving on to item 5A and B. Anything, any announcements or continuance requests that we need to be aware of today?
We do not have any new requests for continuances this time.
Anything on items 6A and B in terms of public hearings?
No dilapidated structures this month and no National Register nominations this month.
Okay, we'll move on to items C, the consent docket cases, and I will be recusing myself from this particular section of the meeting, and Commissioner Phillip will be taking over for this particular area.
All right, thank you, Taylor. So the chair has stepped out, and I believe, does anyone else need to recuse themselves from this item?
Yes. Mr. Commissioner, I need to recuse myself also.
All right, so we still have a quorum. So do any commissioners have any comments, any further questions on either of these items? Does not sound like it. Do we have a motion to approve the consent docket cases?
I'll move to approve the consent docket cases.
All right. Thank you, Ann. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Milner.
Thank you. Just ready to vote.
We need to push abstain.
Thank you all. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. And I turn it back to Taylor.
Excellent. Thank you, Vice Chair Phillip. So anybody that was on the consent docket, unless they want to stick around, may leave at this particular point in time, as we are going to move into our cases for individual consideration. Again, thank you for everybody that was here, and feel free to stick around if you'd like. Let's see, item D, cases for individual consideration. Item number 1, HPCA 1900037 at 600 Northwest 16th Street. Katie, I believe we've got a specific action to take on that one. Can you bring us up to speed there?
We have the absence of an action on that one. Staff realized that this one was noticed improperly, so this application will be moved to July, the July 1 meeting, with no action can be taken on it. And the applicant will actually have some revisions for you between now and then anyway. So we'll see this one again at the July 1st meeting of the commission.
Okay, so no action, no motion needed there. We can move on to item number 2, HPCA 2000018 at 2109 Northwest 27th Street. Can you bring us some speed there, Katie?
Yep, this is Shepherd Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by John Reinke for Linkus Mac 4 Low for certificate of appropriateness to 1 construct addition elective. And this is an application that the commission has seen previously, requested some revisions to the proposed design, and those revisions have been responded to, and staff has recommended approval for this application.
Excellent. Do we have is the applicant present, and does the applicant wish to be heard?
I am present. This is John Reinke on behalf of myself and Link Low, and appreciate the opportunity to be here. Mostly just want to know what further questions you may have. And Alan, I wanted to let you know specifically, I made that floor plan with you in mind because you asked for it. But this was I taught myself how to use a 3D modeling program on this particular deal, and it was a challenge. So that's a pretty interesting structure. But if you have any questions, I'm ready to field them.
Excellent. Do we have any questions from any of the commissioners on this particular item? This is one that we have heard before. Looks like they are constructing an addition. What do we have for the applicant?
John did a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I concur. I don't see any specific issues, and staff has recommended approval, so I don't have any further comment.
Any comments from any other commissioners, or is there anybody else that would like to be heard in regards to this particular item? Or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item HPCA 200018. Items 1 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
Second.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Alan Brown. All commissioners, please vote. It looked like the motion was approved. Did I miss something?
I have not been getting the summary screen that shows the votes. I've just been getting the verbal confirmation. I don't know if you guys are getting that screen or not.
I was getting it. I don't see it now.
I'm not getting it.
I'm not getting it.
Jennifer, are we missing that particular screen, or are we not handling this system properly?
My screen says waiting for active motion.
Mine too, if that helps.
Jennifer, this is Francis and PIO. From what I've heard from previous meetings, you should have a closed vote that will display the vote after it's done before, and it takes a minute to slide in before you go to the next item.
Okay, I applied the save and close button in PrimeGov on my side.
Jennifer, how about we do just do a new motion on this item, perhaps, since that one seems to not have saved. This is Katie.
Klaus, do you? Yeah, okay.
Oh, do I need to make a motion? Yeah, I'll make
Yes,
a
that'd be
motion to approve HPCA. Let me see, I already put it up. 20-00018. Items 1 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
And I'll second that.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor?
Looks like everybody should be putting their vote into PrimeGov. Perfect. I'm going to close and save.
There it is.
There we go. The motion is passed. Mr. Reinecke, enjoy your new addition.
Thank you very much, folks. Appreciate all your work.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 3, HPCA 20-00019 at 920 Northwest 18th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Jeff Blake, G&B Associates, for Tim and Lisa Weaver for certificate of appropriateness to 8 revise item 2 garage construction to remove windows on the rear south and east side facing adjacent properties elective. This is construction of a garage that was previously approved. As they've gone through the permitting process, they realized that because of the proximity to the property line, they would need to fire rate those walls. And had previously been approved to have windows on those walls. So trying to address the code requirements for that structure. So the proposal before you is to remove those windows on the rear and east side of the 2-story garage. Staff did recommend a continuance, wanting the commission to have the opportunity to consider whether that was the most appropriate design solution for the structure, or if there may be other alternatives that could keep some windows in place or other architectural features instead of removing those windows.
How close is the structure to the property line?
Do we have a citizen that wishes to be heard on this particular project, or a representative from this project that can?
Yes, I believe
speak
Jeff
to us?
Blake has joined us to represent the
There he is.
project.
He raised his hand.
Hey, I think I did the right thing here.
Yeah.
This north facade photograph is really telling of how close the structure is to the property line, that fence being pretty accurately located on the side easement. So it is well inside 5 feet, more like 1.5 to 2 feet probably from property line of the east. And then on the south, the structure is on the property line, but there is a utility easement that kind of misrepresents what looks like they have a bigger backyard, but it's actually, so like you can see the pole right next to the building in that picture. That is actually a utility easement, and the building is right on the edge of utility easement, not invading it, but right on the edge of the property line.
So it's on the others, on the, is it the south? Yeah, the south. Is that the, how close is that to the property line?
It's on it.
On it too, okay. All right. Yeah, but there's really no choice.
Is there a
Both those
site plan
elevations are
available?
almost completely out of view from, maybe from the rear. You might see it from the abutting neighbor, but pretty hard to see. And there's a huge forest of bamboo on the east side.
We do not have a site plan as part of this packet. Is that correct, or am I not seeing it?
Mm,
I see a
should have
floor
originally
plan,
been one.
but
There was a site plan originally submitted.
not sure if it's part of this packet.
Refresh my memory, is that this is a new garage built on the old foundation?
The short history is we were trying to save the structure, and once we got all the contents out and saw the foundation, it wasn't savable. So we went back and submitted for a demolition and a new construction of the same structure, same footprint. And then we ran into the fire code issues once we were going through permitting. And that's why it was continued. So it's just
This is
changed.
Katie. We also, if I remember correctly, Jeff evaluated that this likely was either not the historic garage that you're replacing or was a historic garage that had been dramatically altered previously.
That's true. You can kind of see where there was a smaller original footprint, and then there was a pretty big addition put onto the north end or the driveway facing elevation. So it's been modified quite a few times over the decades.
This is Linda Schultz, Jeff. The
Yes.
staff report said that among the specific findings were that methods other than removal of fenestration may be available to acquire firewalls. I mean, have you all had that discussion? I'm just sort of curious. I mean, when it says that, and then I'm not really sure where
Right.
the discussion is.
Well, so I absolutely. I mean, we know what's allowable in terms of windows that comply to the HP standards, and those are all wood windows. Wood windows will never meet a fire rating that the city is looking for, and so windows become not a doable thing in this residence type of construction. So really the only way to get that wall to comply to fire code is to eliminate the openings, unfortunately. I mean, we didn't want to do it, but we're stuck on the city code, the city fire codes right now.
Move it back
Oh, move it back?
off the property.
That's the only thing you could do.
That's the only thing you could do. And I believe 5 foot is the minimum. And if you look at the photographs that were shown earlier, the right bay or west bay is already very challenging to, okay, that's a great shot. So you can see the city trash can. It's borderline impossible to make the turn to get into that right garage door.
Mm-hmm.
But if you move that structure, the amount that would be required to get it off, to make it fire code allowable for the windows, we don't believe the radius would be doable to get into that garage door. So,
Or you'd have to put a lot more concrete back there, right?
no, it's not. It's not a question of how much concrete. It's a question of the car. A modern car can't make the compound turning radius and not hit the corner of the house.
Okay. Well, thank you for that explanation.
Now, Alan can maybe confirm this, but you're allowed some windows if you're between 3 feet and 5 feet.
That's just what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could get another, because it looks like I'm assuming about what the roof overhang is, maybe 1.5 feet off the property line. So if you get another 1.5 feet roughly, I think you could have several windows. I'm not sure.
Is it a
I don't have the
percentage?
proposal in front of me, so I don't know how many windows you are proposing.
Is it a percentage of the wall, Klaus? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Percentage?
And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you'd meet that threshold, or I think you could have. It might be as much as a quarter of the facade or something. I don't have it off the top of my head, but so you might only have to move it, 1.5 feet to meet that requirement.
I think the city was coming back with comments to us, a distance of 5 foot.
At 5 feet, I believe at 5 feet, that's when there is no requirement.
That's when you get away from that fire code
Yeah.
issue with the window.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
the
in
opening.
1 to 5 feet, there is some window area permitted, but I can tell you the truth, I cannot remember the rule.
If you're inside of 5 feet, these are the comments that came back. Inside of
Okay.
5 foot, you get into I think it's a 1 hour fire rating for that window. And
Okay.
that's like a metal construction. It's like a prison window, basically. Nothing that would ever work residentially for this type of.
Joe, is there a size? It seems like there was also a size limitation, like you could do an unrated, but it had to be like no more than 2 by 2 or something like that.
I would love for that to be true. There was no comments on reduction of window size. It bottom line said, this window, if you're going to have an opening on these 2 elevations, these windows must meet a 1 hour fire rating. And a 1 hour fire rated window is, again, like a metal constructed, grid wire, thing. You wouldn't put it on this building. I'm certain you wouldn't like it.
It's not quite within the architectural fabric of the
Yes.
the community.
Missing the mark on architectural fabric, for sure.
Hey,
And then-
Jeff, this is Commissioner Milner.
Uh-huh.
I just have a question, just because I don't have, unless there was one in the pack and I don't see it, I don't have an overhead. What is the actual distance from the front of the garage to the rear of the house, specifically on the right garage bay?
It looks like it's 28 foot 1.5 inches.
Okay.
And the corner of the house, if you look at the site, if you had a site plan, the corner of the house hits the center of that partition between the 2 garage doors.
Okay. So I just want to understand what you were saying. So if you slide it, if you're talking about moving it over
Right.
3 or 4 feet,
Right.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm following what you were saying. To get a car, and I'm specifically your car because it's your house in there, it's a challenging curve to get in. Is that what you're saying? If you move it over?
Yeah, so it's actually not my house, it's my client's. And we did a dry run because, access to these garage doors has always been challenging. And I stood there and watched her with her sedan, not even something like a Yukon, just a sedan. And it's all she could do. It's to hit that where it stands right now.
Okay.
She wasn't even getting it first attempt. So
Okay.
it's a hardship.
Thank you for answering that.
Sure.
Jeff, one more thing. So you're rebuilding the garage. Are you rebuilding it on the existing foundation, or are you putting in a new foundation?
We would put in a new foundation. That was the deal breaker. As we pulled the contents out of the garage, we started to find areas that had no foundation, a few loose bricks for foundation, just a hodgepodge, and nothing that with integrity. So the idea is to drop the structure, preserve the footprint of the original construction, but go back with a foundation that has integrity.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one because I see that you're kind of constrained on all sides for the most part. You can't move in because of that pole and that easement, if I'm correct. And you really, I thought about what if you narrowed it, but you still need the width. I mean, the width is appropriate for a typical garage and cars below. So I'm not sure that narrowing it makes a lot of sense either. So yeah, I don't know if there's a clean solution. I pulled up the code and as far as I'm understanding it here, you can do 25% maximum wall area open with a 0 hour rating at 3 feet. But of course, I can't make that decision, and I'm not the building permit approver. So, I kind of struggle with it. I mean, it's a hardship. It is an interior lot. It's not like that blank wall is going to be facing, a corner or something, but it would be nice to get some fenestration in there. So,
Boss, what was that code requirement again?
So under exterior wall element, openings in walls, it said 25% maximum of wall area, had a 0-hour fire resistance rating at 3 feet. If you go below 3 feet, you're not allowed to have any openings. If you go to 5 feet, you're unlimited on openings.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then walls are, if you're, let's see here. If you're less than 5 feet, you have to have a 1 hour rated wall. So the wall would be rated, but your windows would not have to be rated, as I understand it. You know, I mean, and I'm pretty sure I've done this on a project, but again, I'm not the building, you know, I'm not the reviewer, so I can't make that call. It's an authority having jurisdiction. So.
I think that it's worth, Jeff, talking to the code plan review people about it.
Well,
That's what I thought. So
are you suggesting that I didn't even consider that option because of the previous discussion about the compound radius turn the car has to make? You just can't make the turn if we move the garage over. I mean, I might as well make it a 1-car garage because.
So like 1.5 feet would be
problematic.
Would kind of kill it, you think?
She's already pulling in as far as she can, backing up and doing a 3-point turn to make the approach as it sits right now.
Here's a suggestion. I don't know if my fellow commissioners will love it, but given the unique circumstances on this project, you have the 2 individual doors, which we always prefer on a garage door. You know, it's more historic. But given the circumstances, if you were able to move the garage over 1.5 feet to give you that 3 feet, and you converted that into one wide door, which we've allowed on occasion, and it is in the back of the house, that would maybe make it easier to pull in because, you know, if there's 1 car on the left, it's not going to be, you know, I mean, depending on how you pull it in, of course, but presumably it wouldn't be right in the middle. So it'd be a little bit easier to maneuver, and that would allow for the windows, which I think in this case, it'd be better to have the windows and not have the 2 individual doors than to have the 2 individual doors but no windows. But just throwing that out there.
I think that's a good idea.
Klaus, I was actually thinking that something similar along those lines, but I guess I'm curious, Jeff, what is your take there, and what is your client's take? Right.
My clients are indifferent to losing the windows. What these pictures don't show is, you know, and I mentioned it earlier, there is as tall as that structure, there is a belt of bamboo that is, you know, 30 feet long, or as long as the garage footprint, and probably 15, 20 feet deep. So there's nothing but kind of, you know, the dead side of bamboo facing these windows. They're not redeeming. The windows, if any, that have value face the south, and you would never be able to get into that garage if you pulled the garage forward 3 feet or even 5 feet. So losing the windows functionally and aesthetically for my client is not problematic. It's really just what you all can be comfortable with.
This is Linda Schultz, Jeff.
Yes.
You know, bamboo, I mean, plants are here today and can be gone tomorrow. So, I mean, that's not really compelling for me, but I agree with you that for me, maintaining the way the garage looks from the street is really kind of the most important. And I have appreciated that your clients and you have worked to do this as historically as possible.
Sure. Because
you had lots of challenges. So for me, and honestly, you know, difficulty getting in your garage is not my priority either, although I feel her pain. But I do like that the garage is going to be on the same footprint and in the same design and fit back in like it was to start with. So that would be where I would come from on that, is that the doors are important. The look of the garage is important. The plants may be gone tomorrow, but between the two, I'd rather have you do what looks right from the street.
Yeah.
That's always been my experience with you all, is that preserving the original look to the neighborhood comes first, which is why we've kind of insisted, both for function, which I realize is secondary, but for appearances, that garage has always sat at that footprint and it's always had 2 doors like that. And so that was our first priority.
Yeah, I think that the front of the house definitely takes precedence over, I guess, the east side, kind of back part of the lot, again, covered up by plants. I could certainly get comfortable with the direction that we've got now, but obviously we would want to entertain them. Well, first of all, I think, are there any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular matter? And if not, do we have a motion from one of the commissioners?
I'm kind of going back and forth on this. If you try to move the garage a small amount, it kind of throws things off, and the fence, the landscape, the bamboo, the telephone pole. I mean, I don't think you're looking at much, or you won't see it. So I think I'm kind of become more comfortable with the proposal design as proposed.
I concur.
I am as well.
Excellent. Any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item? Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I guess I'll make that motion then to approve item D3. And see, the staff recommended continuing. So let's see. Trying to, the specific findings, 1. I guess 1. And with the unique circumstance of the existing site and visibility.
Perfect. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Ann Zacharitz.
Excellent. Moved by Alan Brown, seconded by Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Mr. Milner, it looks like we are waiting on your vote. Excellent, thank you. Motion passes. Jeff, thanks for the conversation today.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Okay, moving on to item 4, HPCA 200053 at 2816 North Hudson.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Gage Calhoun for a certificate of appropriateness to 3 remove fascia of historic bracketed cornice boards and replace with 1x8 solid fascia at gable ends, 4 remove historic tapered wood columns and trim and replace each with 2 6x6 stained boxed posts and trim atop existing brick piers, 4 detach front wall of garage from house and relocate, leave existing historic non-roof connection in place and install wood posts as supports, 6 extend driveway to meet new front wall of garage, 7 install series of concrete slabs with drains around the house to divert water to the backyard, and 9 install tongue and groove soffit at front of garage at eve, all elective. This is the first time the commission has seen this application. We have administratively approved several in-kind repairs and replacements at this property, but these were all items that could not be administratively approved, and so they're before you today.
Perfect. Do
I
we have
believe
the
I did see that Mr. Calhoun is in the meeting with us.
Excellent. Mr. Calhoun, I think you need to press *6, and if you could talk to us a little bit about your project, that would be great.
Hi. So, I mean, I'm really here. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to just kind of field those and help out as much as I can. I would say a lot of the things like the concrete slabs and the movement of the garage face are for the longevity of the building. In the application document, packet in there somewhere. I've got some pictures of my basement that you can see, where I'm really trying to mainly put some drainage in is on the south side. There's a very visible and distinct pattern of water drainage soaking into the ground on that side of the house due to the slope that the house sets on, as well as the kind of jut out that the south side wall has. And it is just kind of wrecking the basement foundation. Anytime, especially this time of year, it's just kind of soaked down there. And you can really visibly see the flow of water moving from that side across to a drain on the other side. And then the other one was to get rid of that attachment of the garage and house, because that's just proven to be a really bad water catch. And actually, just about any time it rains, it kind of floods the garage floor, and all drains out underneath some of the sill plates of the walls in there, and has led to a lot of wood rot. And that's, as far as opening statements, is about all I have. So I'd love to, go through this and answer any questions and take any advice.
What questions do we have from the commissioners? I guess one of the questions that I've got is in item 4, we do have remove its historic tapered wood columns, replacing with 2 6x6 stained columns. A couple of things that I struggle with there. I don't know that we've typically allowed the stained columns to be installed, and removal of the tapered wood columns. That feels like a pretty significant architectural feature of the house. And so for me, it's that part is a little bit concerning, but I'm curious what others might think as well.
Mr. Calhoun,
Yes.
this is Linda Schultz. Thank you for coming today. On the concrete slabs with drains that is part of your application, staff report says that they are in need of some additional information in order to really reach a decision on a recommendation on that. Working through it with you, have you provided them with that additional information? Do you know what that is?
I'm unaware of the additional information that was needed.
So this is Katie, Linda, and that is one where, I'm sorry, we typically will list additional information on that. It's not so much additional information as perhaps consideration of alternatives to that amount of paving, alternative proposals. We typically have not supported or approved filling in the paving all the way along the side of the house. We have many houses like this in many of our districts that have little projections and insets, and we often get requests to just pave over all of that. It really changes the character of the property, especially when you get several of them side by side. And so we've tried to work with property owners on other solutions, French drains, other kind of landscaping techniques to keep some permeable space there and not just use paving as the solution. Now, some of these areas on his property are pretty minimally visible from the street, and that paving may not have as much of an impact, but that was what we were referring to for the additional information and the continuance recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I support the staff's recommendation on that, as well as the concern about the historic bracketed cornice boards and the design and replacing all of that. So, I would like for you to work with the staff to bring this a little more in compliance is where I would sort of be. I'd be in favor of a continuance, and I would support the 9.3.
I agree with Linda. However, I would like to say that you gave us quite a bit of information. It's really helpful pointing out exactly what area you're talking about, um, regardless of whether we prove it or not. To see, specific illustrations of your proposal.
Yeah, I agree. And this house is actually a few blocks north of my own. So I appreciate you taking on this house, and obviously it needs a little bit of love. So I'm glad that you're putting some work into it. It'll be a great addition to the neighborhood. And I kind of concur with some of the other comments as far as Taylor's comment on the columns in the front. We have a pretty clear current design. We know what's there now. It kind of matches the other houses adjacent to it on that same block. So I don't see a compelling reason why we should kind of reinvent those columns. And then as far as the drainage is concerned, you've got a pretty good slope going front to back. So I think you're going to have water running off. I do see where you have that one bump out where water might collect, but I think that can be handled with a French drain, or you could even do a little bit of extra grading to kind of slope it out of that corner. I think there's some solutions there that don't involve paving that, because I think, especially with that drive adjacent to it, you'd end up with a pretty big mass of concrete there, which I think would detract from the overall character. Although, as far as if I'm looking at it correctly, I do think it makes sense to put that kind of drainage, like a drainage grate in front of the garage, because that is sloping down towards the garage. So I definitely think you want to do something there, which you've shown. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I kind of agree with my commissioners as well, as far as the cornice and some of the trim and things like that. It's I don't see a compelling reason why. I think you could absolutely replace in kind, and I think it definitely needs to be replaced. It looks like there's a lot of rot and some warping, and so it definitely needs some work. But it does have a lot of it's a great house. It's got a lot of character, especially those end joists with they kind of have the that spacing in between, with a little bit of rhythm. Those are that adds a lot of character to the house, I think. And I think it'd be great, personally, to maintain that if we could. So anyway, those are kind of my initial comments on those items. But I appreciate you for putting in the time to put together this proposal as well. There's a lot of information here, so we all know what we're talking about. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. On that drainage on the south side, because initially my first thought was French drain, and that was right where I wanted to go. And that's a great photo kind of showing where it would be. I would say, from looking at it, I obviously haven't broken ground and dug up anything, but it definitely looks, from some gravel that's kind of exposed. And if you look at my application, I point to kind of like a dip in the ground that's right there. And there's a bit of gravel and rocks that sit down in that dip, which I found with my weed eater and my shim. But it definitely looks as if French drains have been previously installed, and it hasn't quite solved the extent of the problem, just because when it does rain, really a gargantuan amount of water ends up right there at that pocket. It comes off of the roof. And one thing, I thought, I really don't know that gutters would be able to take the amount of water that's coming off right there, because the way the roof is set up, it all drains. Like anything that hits the back of the house at that section all comes to that apex right there. As well as anything that's coming down my neighbor's driveway and out of the front yard, all kind of heads straight to that little spot. And it's definitely something that the history that in the past decades, you can tell people have tried to solve. And I would love to be the guy that came in, and if we can slim down the amount of concrete I put in there, or move it back further from the front of the house to secure that grassy area, But from my experience in watching it and looking at what I see down in my basement and from the history that people have attempted to do, I really feel that a very permanent solution of some sort needs to be put in on this side of the house.
Are all your drains unclogged? Have you had them unclogged?
I haven't done anything of that sort. As far as I'm aware, I would need to dig up the old French drain to be able to get it all cleaned out. So I haven't been
Tell
able to
you
do
that?
anything of that sort.
Oh,
But I don't, from looking at French drains and how they work and the amount of water that's going into the basement down there, it's something that I feel like would be, as soon as somebody, I rent to somebody or move out of the house, it's something that's going to get clogged and nobody will take care of it. And the basement will just again begin eroding. A lot of it is kind of in the middle of the house where the concrete pad of the basement's been deteriorated. Is the middle of the house is definitely sinking, and it's just pushing straight through the concrete pad that's in the basement.
Is that a, looks like a little opening to the garage, right where that gravel is on page 13 on those images? Looks like there's a board against the wall. Does that open to the garage? I mean, the basement?
Yes, there's an entrance to the crawl space. There's actually two of them. There's one right there, and then there's one over at the other gable end. But the house it's got a very interesting basement. It's got these like half walls around the basement down there where you can access the crawl space. They're all like 5-foot tall walls, and then like a 3-foot area above them that you can just enter straight into the crawl space. And all the there's not water coming through those holes. All the topsoil is dry in the crawl space. It's the actual basement floor that really gets soaked up and cracked and destroyed.
I will say, as somebody who has experience living in the basement of a historic neighborhood or historic home, getting water out of those things is extremely challenging. And I know, you can spend ungodly amounts of money trying to keep the water out. I guess I see that as, I guess I can rationalize the concrete slabs as something to protect the future value of the home, to protect the actual house itself from starting to kind of crumble in on itself. And so that's one reason I could certainly rationalize the use of some concrete slabs in order to move water away from the foundation of the home and from entering the basement and all of that. So, I mean, it's something I could probably get on board with the kind of justification of protecting the house long term. So I can get there.
I would say that water is a multi-pronged enemy of houses, and that we need to know if gutters will work and drains will work. I mean, we need to know what will work and preserve the historic look of that house and the historic integrity of it while we help you get it done. And I think that's really what the staff is trying to get us to do, is to continue it and continue to work with you, and they will, to bring this to some resolution that works for you and does what needs to be done to protect your house. But I just don't think we're there yet, Mr. Calhoun. Are you?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just kind of ambling after that, but I just kind of, I think that they need to work with you a little bit more. And I think you'll find that you will end up with something that you're okay with. I mean, you're happy with. It might just need a little more work.
Well, Taylor, you brought up a good point, and I've been looking at this a little bit more. And I think what's apparent is the way the roof slopes are, it all comes down to that one point where that gravel is. I mean, you've got two slopes. I mean, you basically have three slopes all coming together at that one spot. But it looks like you're proposing the paving to go maybe a few feet from the front of the house. I mean, I wonder if and I do understand, you know, anytime you have French drains or any kind of drain that's under the ground, you know, leaves are going to get in there. It is a maintenance, you know, it is something you have to keep up with, and not everyone would keep up with that for sure. But I'm wondering, I mean, if you pulled that concrete, you know, pad all the way back to where those roof eaves kind of converge, and then maybe take it back from there. That way you're maintaining most of the grass in between the houses, you know, the landscape. I mean, and as Linda says, plants are temporary, you know, it's nothing permanent, but I mean, you could even landscape it to where you might not see that, and it just goes from that corner back. I mean, that might be a long-term solution, because I do agree. I mean, as Linda said, water is probably one of the hardest elements on houses, you know, whether, you know, it erodes houses pretty quickly with rot. And so I don't know. I think there, you know, a solution that is low maintenance and will last a long time is nice, as long as it doesn't affect the historic character of the house too much. So those are my kind of.
Well, and I think that we need to be very careful about creating, I mean, make sure that the city is signed off on concrete, because it impacts everybody, and you can't run your water off of your lot onto somebody else's lot. Or, I mean, I just think there's a lot here that we need to know more about, and I'm sure we can, because Mr. Calhoun has already done a lot of work that's laid the groundwork. So I think that we just need to be careful about how much concrete we're putting anywhere to solve water problems that maybe have other solutions.
I guess I'm unsure and clear about what we're talking about exactly. The applicant wants to move the front wall of the garage back 4 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. I kind of have. I'm sorry. I know you guys have this. Absolutely.
Is that the area we're talking about, where the house and the garage touch?
No, we are actually on the other side of the house. If you'll, the kind of the description of the project in this gargantuan packet I've created is on. It begins on page 13.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing all that time.
It's a little confusing because they're both kind of drainage related. I personally would. Currently, the concrete that I had originally planned and schemed to put in there, it doesn't go further than the front of the house. It actually, that very front wall behind my porch would be where it started. And actually, definitely, I was in a kind of a time pressed. I'm a medical student, and so I've got 8 weeks this summer to get to work on a lot of this. So I was really trying to get this through and do as best as I could to explain it. And one of the things that I kind of started to realize, you know, just days before I submitted the proposal, I was having a conversation with Mrs. Friddle, that kind of like what you had mentioned, Councilman Phillips, to move it back to just over where that water falls off the roof. I think anything that runs down the side of the house would end up in that trench, as well as everything that pours off the roof. I do believe looking at it further would be a very, very thorough solution for it. As far as water, the reason I wanted to, you can see I want to run these trenches around the jut and then kind of target them down. And that was to ensure, and definitely the slopage of the ground would flow that water back into my own property. That was definitely something I considered and was concerned about. I wanted to make sure that it just flew into my backyard. I get all of the trying to maintain that green space. And so that's something that I want myself. I don't want to have all concrete around there. I do agree that would be quite not correct and everything. So anything that I can get, it, you know, as much as I need to slim it down, just to kind of have a very permanent solution that, you know, if I'm not around or I'm living, you know, in Tulsa or something like that a year from now, and there's somebody renting the house from me, I can be certain that it's easy to detect that it's, you know, clogged before it's like I get a call that, hey, the piers in the basement are sinking again. What's going on?
Okay. What about some of the other items that are in the particular package? I think we look at item 3, removing fascia of historic bracketed cornice boards and replace with 1x8 solid fascia boards at all gable ends. Does that particular item need additional discussion too?
I think we're all opposed to removing historic features of the house.
I certainly am as well.
I am as well.
This is Katie. I think I noted was as we introduced this, but those are items for which the applicant does have administrative approval to do in-kind replacement repair. So they have been addressed in that sense, but we had the kind of option A, option B. You have option B in front of you. So
We recommend restoring
Yes.
existing features.
The garage is kind of an interesting configuration. I remember when this house came on the market and I kind of looked at it, and it's just strange. That garage is kind of barely tacked on to the house. You know, I think I agree with you that you're trying to do something about that. I mean, that would have probably been one of my, you know, initial efforts as well. So, I mean, you're basically proposing in a way to detach it from the house, have kind of like a breezeway through there, which makes sense because it is kind of cut off. Right now, it kind of cuts off the back from the front. But you're leaving the roof. So, you know, I'm not sure I really have any issues with that per se. I don't know if my fellow commissioner has any comments on that, but.
That's what I was originally looking at. Yeah, I think that's a much better design. It is very strange how it's attached to the house there.
I don't have any problem with that either. It's that if there is documentation that they need, we just need to say, let's get it. Because we're continuing it for.
this one was, again, it was we have all the documentation that we need for this one. I think everything's drawn up in full detail. It's not a typical, if we think about if they were building a new garage and said they were going to make the roof like that, where it's attached to the house, we would typically not support that and say that's not really a historic condition to have the roof attached that way. So the continuance was to allow for some discussion about whether keeping the roof attached to the house in that way, extending it out farther past the front wall of the garage was appropriate or not. There's really no new documentation needed unless you all asked for him to make some sort of a revision to the proposal.
Well, if I understand it correctly, the roof is staying the same. It's just the wall that's being rebuilt.
Correct.
4 feet back. And then some columns, let's see.
So it does revert back to a more historic configuration in that it is a detached garage then, right?
Yes.
Pretty much.
I'm all in on that one.
The
So
roof,
it sounds like
the roof would still touch the house, though.
It would touch the house?
Yeah.
The roof stays where it is, abutting the house, and then it would be supported at the front corners by wood posts.
Do we know if this is common on that street? Are there other houses that the garage attaches in such a way, or houses in a block nearby? I can't say that I've ever seen that before, so I'm just curious if that's.
It doesn't appear to be common. It looks from researching the property previously, we think that the rear of the house was a porch that was enclosed or perhaps an addition. And so probably that garage originally did not touch the house. And then when they added on at the back, they just went right up to the wall of the garage.
Okay.
But that is not a typical configuration by any means.
So would it be more historically accurate with other detached garages if the roof did not continue to touch any longer?
I think that's definitely the most typical configuration that we see, where there is a true break between the house and the garage, even at properties where we see them fairly close together. Usually they're not connected.
Okay, and just so I'm not missing anything, Gage, you've done a really great job with this packet. I mean, the information, and it's been very helpful to see all this. Is there a particular reason why you've designed it in such a way that the roof continues to attach? And then there's the door there. I just want to make sure I have all the information. And if it's in that packet, I apologize if I read over it.
My original intention was, from what I understood, and I didn't know the exact history of the house. It is actually, I was on a conversation with Katie, and it finally dawned on me why they contact in such an interesting way they do, and it is because they filled in a porch like that. My original intent was just to keep as much history as there was there. I didn't, as just a citizen, I didn't understand the exact what is historical and what is considered not historical. And so I figured something like the maintenance of roof lines, especially when it comes to what you would see from the street. I wanted it to still look like it was back when it was originally constructed, while solving my water problem and giving more access to the backyard of the house. So that was my original intent. And I do want to say, I see on the staff report, it mentions that those posts are going to be stained. That was actually an original submission. It was recommended to me that stained wood probably wouldn't be of as much historical nature. And so I've changed those to paint to match the trim on the rest of the structure. I don't know if that's of any importance. But yeah, maintaining the roof line, the historical roof line was my intent, because I got administrative approval to put a fence across the front of that driveway. So I think from the road, the only thing you'll be able to see of the garage will probably be its roof line.
Okay. So I guess, thank you. I appreciate that answer. So I guess my question would just be for the other commissioners, if it's more historically accurate that they don't continue to touch, if the garage just becomes a detached garage without that roof just extending and touching it, with just basically just creating kind of a door walk-through. So
This is kind of a funny condition because, and kind of to Ann's question about what is typical on that, I walk between my house, which is on Hudson and 25th, north along there, almost every other day. And there are a few houses like that where you have, it just looks like over the years, I'm sure before this was a historic neighborhood, designated historic preservation neighborhood, people would build random garages or, kind of fill in. So there are a few of these kind of weird attached garages along the way. I guess I totally get your comment. I think historically, like a totally detached garage would be the most accurate. I guess what we see currently is kind of this kind of piece together configuration, but I guess that's kind of what we have to work with. So, personally, I don't really have a problem leaving the roof. I think moving it back is nice because it does create a little bit of separation. I think even visually, you'd see a little bit of daylight between the house and garage, which I think is nice. Since the roof is the way it is, I don't really have a problem leaving it. Although, John, I don't see a problem either with pulling it back to where it'd be like a true detached garage. So I don't know. That might be a matter of preference. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would prefer to see it detached as well. And it sounds like there's enough items here where it sounds like we're going to be leaning towards a continuance, and under that premise, does it make sense to come back with a plan that does show that as kind of a detached space, if that's where we want to take it?
If at all possible, given my personal circumstances, as I mentioned earlier, I just finished up my first year of medical school, and I'm going to be doing a solid 80% of this work on my own. I've done it, worked in construction for many, many years. A continuance would probably put me in a time bind, and I'm not familiar with the process, and I don't want to be unorthodox for how this works. I would like to be just told what to do today, if that's at all possible. Um, and then also the other thing is I've built a lot of walls, torn a lot of walls down. I've never done any roofing. I don't know if that's something that I would consider myself extremely capable of breaking into. And if it's what needs to be done, I'd for sure go and get a general contractor and get it taken care of. But out of my own pocket and my own intentions and my financial planning to build a lot of sweat equity in this home, I would prefer to keep that roof there, as it's really within my capability, as well as my original intentions with the historical value of the roof line. And I understand that's just something I'd ask for consideration.
Sure. I think that.
This is Katie. If two things, one, that was staff's understanding as well, is that part of the applicant's concern was that if the roof is to stay where it is, that could be done with fairly minimal impact on the structure of the garage. And that change made to the wall to address the connection between the house and the garage, but retain the kind of the whatever structural integrity there is to the garage. The other thing I was going to say is that if the decision is to ask that the front wall of the garage, including the roof, be pushed back, and if the applicant agreed to that, then I think that is something simple enough to be submitted to staff after the fact without a continuance. If you all are comfortable not seeing it again, I think that's pretty straightforward, and we already have lots of good drawings on the before and after for moving the wall back. So that's something that we could review as part of the after the fact assembly of the CA.
I just don't know how much time. Well, that would then give you an opportunity, Mr. Calhoun, to do that portion of your project, but only that portion, right?
I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, there's the drainage, and there are like five items. One of them being detach the front wall of the garage. That's like one section that we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, so then there are other things then that would be continued in your application. A series of concrete slabs, for instance, this concrete slab issue.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I wanted to say is that if we have some sort of conditional approval of item 5, that the staff can then work through with you to bring it to a place where it can be administratively approved. That's just one item.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you agreed with, Katie had mentioned as far as all the fascia stuff, all the trim, all of that. I mean, if you replace that in kind, that's something Katie can just approve administratively. So if I'm correct in this, you could do the garage portion of the work if you were okay with kind of replacing in kind all the trim and fascia and all that, the columns in the front. Then Katie could administratively approve that. So really the only thing you'd be left is the drainage, the drainage item. And if we feel like that's something that we want to discuss, it sounds like that might be something we want to look at further based on Linda's comments, that would get you 90% of the way, and then you just have the drainage, a little bit of paving to figure out, later.
I planned for that, and I have been administratively approved for replacement in kind of the fascia, the columns, and the brackets or corbels. And actually today is the end of my mailing period, I'm pretty sure, on those circumstances. And I've been administratively approved for the fence work. So the concrete slab and drainage and the movement of the front wall of the garage, I believe, are the only standing items.
well, I'm not really prepared to approve just for me, the drainage items without more information. I'm okay with the replacement of historic materials if we have the proper documentation, and I'm okay with working through the issues on that porch, whatever it was, addition, for you to make that happen, as long as as long as you work with the staff to do that. I'm not ready yet on that first one for me.
Is that,
this
when
is-
you say that first
this
one, are you
is-
referring to the garage?
I'm referring to the drainage.
Okay.
This is Katie. Perhaps it would help everybody if we went ahead and voted on some of these items that we've already discussed, just to pin down. I will say on item 3 and item 4, both of those, I think it sounds like the direction we're going is denial, because we have a separate administrative approval for the in-kind replacement. So those non-in-kind replacements can be denied. I think on item 5, it sounded like we were moving toward perhaps an approval with some conditions, and just need to clarify what's happening with the roof form, and include that in an approval, or a continuance if you all feel it's necessary to see it again. Either way, I think if assuming number 5 is approved, we could certainly approve number 6 based on the discussion that you all have had. And then it sounds like number 7 would be a continuance. There may be some administratively approvable solutions that we can come up with between now and a future meeting. And then number 9 is related to the garage, number 5. So that's just dependent upon whether or not the roof of the garage is remaining in place or being pulled back.
So do we have any commissioners that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on HPCA 20-00053 to deny items 3 and 4 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report. And I believe we have to do that separate from the other motions, right? So.
Yes, we usually will do a denial separately.
And I'll second that.
Is that with prejudice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, with prejudice.
Okay, we've got a
All right.
motion.
We need to,
We need to get all the other items in there too. Or do we-
mine is not moving. Because
We're
Linda,
doing
did
that
you-
one
Did you
separately.
second that, Linda?
I don't have the second. I mean, I thought somebody else seconded that. Maybe I just misheard.
I'm sorry, I seconded it.
Did you hit the button?
So item moved by Klaus Freiman Phillip, seconded by John Milner. All in favor, please vote.
Mine doesn't show the second.
Mine didn't either. But I got to vote.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay, items 3 and 4 have been denied. How about items 5, 6, 7, and 9?
So was there consensus on 5 to move the entire wall back 4 feet, including the roof? Was that the direction it was going?
I thought it was where,
To totally detach it from the house?
I thought it was that got kind of confused for me, but Katie had interjected and offered that the staff could work through that.
Well,
We-
I thought, Klaus, you guys are talking about detaching the roof from the house. Is that correct?
We did talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm the one that brought it up and just asking if it was what other garages were like on that
Okay.
street.
I think that would actually look better if the applicant's willing to do that. Is he?
I think he's addressed that. He was uncomfortable with that perhaps and wanted to stay with the roof line touching.
Uncomfortable
So
with
my-
actually doing the work himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what he had said.
It doesn't
Okay.
mean you can't make the motion.
Oh. Personally, on my plans for the roof, as I mentioned, I'm not extremely comfortable taking the roof back with it as well. And another thought that I have is that I've kind of enjoyed the process of finding out all the intricacies of this home, and how long it's kind of like every owner that's come along and kind of had their little staple on it. And one thing that I really did enjoy when finally figuring out why the garage is attached the way it was is I enjoyed kind of getting that historical understanding of the way that this was all arranged and built. And to maintain those roof lines in that way would be something that I would enjoy to have to tell people about and just to kind of see.
Well, then maybe we should, maybe I'm going back to continuing it until we get a better understanding of where it's going to end up.
I guess I was under the impression that we were looking at a conditional approval, and that some of these changes, Mr. Calhoun could work with staff on to address, as long as, I guess the big thing that we would need to decide is whether the roof line stays as is or is pushed back. And I'm comfortable with it staying as is too, if it's opened up. I guess I'm comfortable with it either way.
I am as well.
Okay with it, the roof line staying as it is?
Yep. But sounds like opening up that particular area.
So basically as proposed.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
so I move that we approve items, sorry, my dog is barking. Items 5 and 9 as proposed with the, so the staff recommended 5 and 9, recommending continuing. So the specific findings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Ann Zacharitz.
Moved by Alan Brown, seconded by Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. That motion is passed. So that takes care of 3, 4, 5, and 9. We have items 6 and 7. Do we have a motion on either one of those?
Well, I feel like item 6 would need to be approved as well, since we just approved to move the front of the garage back, correct? Extend driveway to meet new front wall of garage?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Did I not include 6 in my motion?
No, you said 5 and 9.
5 and 9.
Sorry, I didn't catch it at the time, or I would have had you add it.
Yeah.
Catch. John.
Okay, so I guess, can I just go ahead and approve item 6, make a motion for that now?
Yeah.
Okay. so I-
And I'll
I so
second
moved.
that.
I so
Moved by
moved.
Alan Brown, seconded by John Milner. All commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. That motion passes as well. And the last item we have is item 7. Do we have a motion for item 7?
I want to make a motion that we continue item 7. until, when's the next meeting?
July 1.
The July 1 meeting for further consideration. Do I need to say, include anything else?
You know, that there's a deadline next Tuesday, right, for new material?
Oh, it is.
Yes, we would need any new material to be presented for the July 1 meeting by Tuesday of next week. This may be one that's more of just a discussion and not so much new drawings and documentation and that sort of thing. So we'll work with the applicant on that.
Right.
Want to make sure we knew that.
Okay, do we have a second on that particular item?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Linda Schultz, seconded by Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov. Okay, item number 7 has been deferred to the next, what is that date again, Katie?
July 1.
To the July 1 meeting. Mr. Calhoun, thank you for all this information in the packet. Thanks for the conversation, and I think we've wrapped up this particular case. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you guys very much. And it sounds like I'll see you in about a month.
There we go. Excellent. Okay, next item on the list, HPCA 200061 at 908 Northwest 38th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Shabazz Ahmad, Dream 405 Investments for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition elective, 2, construct garage and install driveway elective, and 3, remove driveway elective. This is a house similar to one that the commission saw fairly recently that has an attached garage on the front elevation of the house that is very small and no longer really functions as a garage. And the applicant has proposed to construct a detached garage in the backyard with a new driveway accessing that detached garage.
Perfect. Do we have the applicant present?
Yes.
Excellent. Talk to us a little bit about this particular project and what you're wanting to do.
We're proposing to, like Katie said, take away the attached garage, and because a modern size car doesn't fit. I think we have the dimensions here. It doesn't. You're not able to open the doors once you get in the garage, so we need another garage. And we had a similar case a couple months ago. And so we kept the front facade. We kept it the garage and the paneling to make it seem like it's still a garage, because we had an issue last time where it was you wanted to match it to the stone or the material that it was, or in this case it would be brick, but we kept it as appearance as it would be of a garage or paneling there. And then we're doing an addition. It's 814 square feet, 2-story addition. We're gonna be matching the brick. The siding is lap siding, smooth. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And we're gonna remove the existing driveway that goes to the attached garage because we don't want to have two driveways. So yeah.
And did we remove the driveway on the, I know that they're not related, but just for some precedence, did we remove the driveway on the previous?
Yes, we did.
What questions do we have from commissioners regarding this particular property?
You know, honestly, this is pretty similar to that other one that we discussed, which I know we had a lot of discussion on that one, but you know, you've pretty much taken all of the discussion items we had on that one and that we ended up approving and applied it here, I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't really have any issues, except that I would say, I think it does make sense to take that driveway away. You're still referencing the garage with the materials and the way you're doing the front, but I think it would not make sense to have the two drives. So those are just my comments on this.
Got a question on the front north elevation, the garage doors. I don't understand. The photograph looks like two existing doors that are hinged.
Yes.
It says existing window. Is there a window in there?
There's not. If that might be, I think that's for the window above. Let me
Okay.
check.
Window above where? I mean, it says, the note says existing window above.
Yeah, the window.
The doors have that crossbuck style on the bottom panel.
Yeah, it's not referring to the window there. It's talking about the window above on the second story, not the garage. I think that's what the architect is referring to.
So what are you planning on doing with those garage doors?
So we're gonna replicate the exact same style, just add windows to it. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
So the existing ones don't have windows, but you're proposing new windows that do.
Yes.
New doors that do have windows on an upper section.
Yes, that's correct.
The depending on what we approve here, the proportion of those should be the same as existing, the bottom section and the top section of those doors, and the drawings don't show that. The drawings don't show that, and they also have mutton bars on the new doors, which seems, the design doesn't look appropriate to me. I think that needs to be studied, those new doors, to be closer to the existing design, proportion, everything.
Yeah, we plan on that. Maybe it was hard for the architect to draw it out exactly like how it is, but that's what we plan on doing, is replicating it exactly how it is right now.
Well, I think that would need to be understood on, the drawing doesn't show it that way. So
yeah,
that would be something I think that would be very important, because I'm not sure about the mutton bars existing. It's just a flat panel on the top, it looks like in that photograph. Is that right? A flat?
Yeah, it's just a flat panel.
It kind of makes the garage doors appear squatty, or almost like a Dutch door of some sort.
Yeah, it doesn't look right.
Yeah, we should have done a better job on the illustration on the new.
So I'm not sure about the upper section. I think that'd be, I don't know, see what everybody else thinks. I think just a no mutton bars in the upper section would be more appropriate. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. Yeah, I think. I wonder, is that something that we could add as a condition, and staff could approve that, or is that something that we need to look at again?
I think we can add it as a requirement that the drawings be resubmitted as intended, you know.
Yeah, I would like to see a drawing submitted that has dimensions of the existing doors, and then the replication doors, so we can be sure they're the same. Again, you guys agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All of that can be submitted to staff if you're comfortable with that.
Yes.
But we would want it in the motion.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion on this particular item?
Well, I guess I'll go again. I move we approve item D5 with the specific findings in the staff report. I'm looking to see if there's anyone I want to leave out. With the condition that the applicants submit documentation on the existing garage doors and the replicated garage doors.
And the condition for the muntins?
Yes, and that the upper section of the garage doors does not include muntin bars, the glass portion.
So Alan, are we making a motion to approve the other items as well as, in terms of constructing the addition and removing the driveway and all of that too?
I thought everybody was comfortable with that, so we can talk about some more.
No, I'm comfortable with it. I just wanted to make sure.
That was my intent.
Perfect. Okay. Do we have a second then?
I'll second.
Moved by Alan Brown, second by Klaus Ryman Phillip. All in favor, please vote. And it would appear that we're waiting on your vote. You click the,
I've lost that screen. It looks like I'm viewing someone else's screen at the moment.
oh, that's good.
So
And
I'll
if
vote as
you'll-
soon as I have the ability to.
Perfect.
Can you press escape and see if sometimes your Zoom becomes the full screen, and if you make it where it's a window, then you'll see your own PrimeGov again?
I'll try. Now I'm still seeing someone else's screen.
How do you know?
It says at the top in a green bar, you're viewing Cameron Conyers' screen.
Yeah, mine does.
Okay, that's the Zoom screen.
Yep. There's no place.
Up under where it says view options next to the green bar.
Yep.
If you can click on that and then hit exit full screen.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's not an option.
It did work for me a minute ago and I got lost in this to just hit exit, but that isn't working for you?
I hit exit and it takes me, it shrinks the Zoom window,
And
but I can't.
Are you able to
There we
look
go.
at?
Did you find
Found it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
problem of this little tiny laptop.
Perfect. Well, the motion passes.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, moving on to item number 6, HPCA 2000073 at 2320 Northwest 28th Street.
This is in Shepherd, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Ashley Cruz, 5 Point Property Group, LLC, for Coulter Wells for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace front door, elective. This is a new application, and it is a replacement of a door with a new door that doesn't match and that is not a typical style and design that we usually see on structures of this type, this time period, and that's why we were not able to administratively approve this.
Excellent. Do we have the applicant present today?
Yes, Ashley Cruz
Perfect.
and
Coulter Wells, both.
Ashley, can you ask the person with you to repeat their name, please?
Coulter Wells.
Perfect. Talk to us a little bit about the door that you want to replace, Ashley.
yes, we submitted several things on an application for administrative approval, and when we did that, we weren't aware that doors with that amount of glass usually weren't administratively approved, and so after talking with Angela, we decided that we like this door well enough that we wanted to see what you guys would say. We've done some driving through Shepherd after receiving our packet the other day that we were going to committee. to see if we could find any houses that were similar in amount of glass, etc. And we came up with about 6 on streets adjacent to 28th. There were 3 on 29th, and then 2 on 27th and 1 on 26th that were similar. I don't know if those are approved or unapproved doors, but they do have a similar amount of glass. And so I don't know if that plays into consideration for you guys. Are there any other questions you have about the door that we've proposed? I think that door is in our original packet that we submitted.
Okay. Well,
The existing door is not historic, is that correct?
The existing door is not historic, and we're under the impression that it's actually an interior grade door. It's not solid wood.
So it gets down to the design of the new door.
Yes.
And it's important, you know, to maintain the design criteria on doors and windows, which is sometimes challenging for the applicant. Katie, what would it take on a door with lights like this to meet an administrative approval?
So if we have what we believe to be a historic doors, then we try to approximate those as closely as possible. When we have a door that we don't believe to be historic, then sometimes we have reason to believe that the door that's there is perhaps an approximation of a previous historic door.
Right.
We see in certain districts, particularly, we kind of can see patterns of doors that were all replaced within a certain time period and of a certain style. I think the half-light door that the applicant proposed with the solid lower portion and then 9 lights above is a pretty typical style of door. What we typically don't see is the leaded glass within those panels.
Right.
So that part of it was part of the concern. We often see front doors that are solid, especially on a Tudor, but we don't know exactly what the historic front door is on this structure, I believe.
Right. Okay, I got it.
Part of it's the style and part of it's the decorative glass.
Yeah, and to me, you might see leaded glass, but not in an abstract pattern like that.
Well, I should know, I missed this is one where we have documentation of the last time the door was replaced, and that was a 6-panel door that was presumed to be the historic door. So I guess we do have some reason to believe that it would have historically been a solid 6-panel door like this. Sorry about that.
Well, I don't object to adding the lights, but I would agree with the staff that it needs to be a more historic look than that. And that stained glass is not historic. So I would hope that we could come to some sort of agreement that stayed within the framework of the guidelines.
I think that's where I am too, Linda. You know, the stained glass is just not typical of the neighborhood. I know that it's probably around and people have snuck it in over the years. But you know, the door that's on there is certainly much more standard in terms of its historical character and all of that. But I think the stained glass door and the leaded glass door is awesome. I just don't know that it really fits with this particular house in this particular area. So I think that's where I would rest.
I agree.
I agree.
So do we have a motion on this particular item?
Well, Ms. Cruz, are you okay with the continuance on this?
Excuse me?
Are you okay with to continue this and continue working with the staff on the front door?
Yes, with possibly, I mean, the reason we decided on a door with glass was that this, of course, the front door opens into the living room, and in keeping with the current placement of windows, the living room has two small windows that are on the north side of the house. And so we were trying to maintain privacy with the patterned glass, but also allow a little bit more natural light to flow into the living room. And so that was kind of my thinking when picking this door. And so I did speak to Angela the other day, and she said that it probably could be a thing that we talk about doing non-leaded, true divided light, wood door as an option.
That is where
Yeah, I don't think we object to that.
Yep.
Okay.
No objections.
So,
But if you would consider our leaded glass door, we would love it.
yeah, well, we're going to, we're sort of past to asking you, can we continue this? Because I think there was a general, and you'll just have to speak up if I was wrong. I think we'd prefer that it not be leaded glass because that's not historically accurate. And I think I heard that we were all, that we were pretty much okay with divided light, but it would require that we do a continuance until the July meeting. And I just wanted to be sure you're okay with that.
There's another option if they want glass in the door and want an obscure vision. You can put glass high in the door, say 3 panels high in the door to allow some light, but still block vision. Would they want to consider that?
Okay, more in keeping with a craftsman look door without
Well,
the trim work underneath.
Yeah, I guess it would be sort of that style. At the top section would have 3, say 2 or 3, say 3 sections of glass that would be basically above eye level. They would let light in, would still block the vision. It's just a possibility I thought might be possible.
Okay.
And Katie is, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. If you were going to talk to Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Katie, is that something that, if we did some sort of conditional approval on, that they could work with staff to nail down the details of the door, knowing that we're not super comfortable with the leaded glass direction?
Yes, I think if you all give some specific direction and what you're comfortable with, then that can be something they submit to staff and work out to include in a CA.
Ashley, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, if we do that and I work with staff, are we able to then turn that to administrative instead of into continuance to July?
I mean, that's where I think we should try to get her.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, Linda?
I think that's kind of where we should try to get this, is because I think we're all sort of in agreement, and Ms. Cruz is kind of coming along. So if we could get it where she could move forward.
Yeah, so I think what the best solution is what we can do is approve it with conditions specifying the changes that the commission wants to see to the design of the door. And then we would just hold the certificate of appropriateness until those conditions are met. We would work with the applicant after the meeting to get a revised door design. And then as soon as we have that agreed to between the applicant and staff, we would release the CA.
I don't know that we want to design the door.
Well, not design the door, but provide direction to what the changes that you would want to see made to the door. If it's that it can be a partially glazed door, but without the leaded glass, just what you've been discussing so far.
Let me try a motion. I move we approve item D6 with the condition that the applicant submit a new door design for the front door that eliminates leaded glass and provides partial clear glass panels designed to be approved by staff.
Right, clear glass divided light, right?
Clear glass in panels, I don't know about, I'm not saying divided light, some sort of panels. Could be 3 sections divided light, but limited panels of glass. The staff would approve. That doesn't work? Divided
Yeah.
lights usually means a larger section of glass, Linda, like 3/3. They might end up with just 1 or 2 sections of glass.
Okay, I mean, if Miss Cruz is here, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to not make it her decisions for her around too
No,
detailed.
I tried to make it simple. I said limited amounts of glass that the staff will approve the design.
That is historically compatible.
Historically compatible, the staff will approve it. They won't approve something it's not historically compatible.
They need to work with her too. Okay. Just try not to make it too hard.
I'm trying to leave some room here for their discretion.
I think it's an excellent
So-
motion. Alan, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. Moved by Alan Brown, seconded by Ann Zacharitz. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov. Okay, motion carries, motion passes. Ashley, thank you for joining us today, and thanks for your help on the project.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on to HPC. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, just one moment. I just need to leave the meeting for a second to switch devices. I'll be back on in a moment.
okay. Thanks, Ann. So Katie or Rita, I'm assuming we still have quorum. Should we or can we continue, or do we need to wait for Commissioner Zacharitz to return?
You know, we have about 5 items left, and it is right about 4 o'clock. We could take a 5-minute break.
I'm comfortable with
and
that
come
too.
back.
Okay,
Thank you.
take a 5-minute break and we will be back. That's 3. Do you want to say be back at 4?
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. It is 4 o'clock, Katie. I'm back and ready to start whenever you guys are.
Ready? Oh, by the way, if you you can also use the space bar to mute and unmute, I think. At least it was working.
Yep, that worked for me. That's a nice trick.
I hit the space bar and something went away, but I'm not sure what went away. So now I'm going to steer clear of that one, Alan.
Yeah.
We need one more person to get back on for us to have a quorum, and then we can get started.
Perfect.
Okay, we have 5 out of 6. Anne sent me an email saying she was having some technical difficulties, so I think we can get started and she'll get back on as quickly as she can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next item that we will hear is HPCA 20-00075 at 500 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Chad Rice, CR Homes LLC, for a certificate of appropriateness to 4 demolish existing non-historic garage elective and 5 construct 2-story garage and appurtenances elective. And before we go on, Jennifer, Rita, do we need to take roll again, or are we okay because everyone is visibly participating in the meeting? Rita says, yes, we need to take roll again. So Jennifer, if you could call roll just to reconfirm since we've come back from the break.
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commissioner Schultz.
Present.
And Commissioner Zackrit, has you made it back on the call yet? Nope. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Excellent. Okay, so next item we will hear is HPCA 20-00075 at 500 Northwest 17th Street.
And again, this is demolition of a non-historic garage and construction of a new garage. And the applicant, Mr. Rice, is on the phone on the meeting with us.
Perfect. Mr. Rice, talk to us about your project, please.
So the original historic structure is approximately 1,700 square feet down with a loft room up. We are in the early phases of demolition. We've got most of everything pulled out of the house and ready to go back in. But in order to set it up the way that my wife and I, this is going to be basically our empty nester home. But we still have 2 years of our twins in high school. So in order to remodel the house the way we want to, we need to assume one of those downstairs bedrooms into the master area of the home. And we need to thus create another bedroom or living room space, whatever you want, a living space on the property. And the plan that we had submitted for that garage had kind of a living with a little kitchenette, something that would also service kids coming home from college. And once they had children and we needed to have a play space, it would be able to service that need, as opposed to trying to just keep the home in essence as it was on the inside, with 2 downstairs bedrooms and then an office and then an upstairs space, if you will.
And this is a new, it looks like a relatively new construction in terms of the garage that's currently there.
It was approved in November of 16 and construction was completed in the early part of 17.
How does this, maybe this is a question for Katie or Angela, but how does the size of this particular garage fit within current guidelines? Is it Is it within scope? Is it too large? Is it small? How does it fit?
This is Katie. The proposed new garage is a 450 square foot footprint, which is the size that the guidelines typically allow. It's kind of a threshold size for new construction garages. And then it is also a two-story garage, which the guidelines talk about when and where two-story garages are appropriate. Those guidelines address two-story garages in the context of when we don't know what the historic garage was, but generally the rule of thumb that we have followed is that when there is a two-story garage at an abutting property, or when two-story garages are predominant along the block, then a two-story garage is allowed.
Am I looking at a two-story garage to the left of that photo?
Yes, there are several two-story garages in the area and immediately abutting this garage.
Including that turquoise, I guess.
But what's the difference in the height? Let me look at that and scale. Are they of similar height and scale? And
I do not know if we have a comparison height for the surrounding two-story garages.
so this one is almost 24 feet.
At 23, almost 24 foot height to the peak, I think is probably minimal to get two floors in there. I would think that's, I don't know what the other ones are, but I imagine they're about the same. But it would be nice to know.
Well, I mean, if we're going to say that the basis of our decision is based on the yellow garage, it'd be nice to know how tall it was, how big it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur. I've got it pulled up in the street view, and they're both full two-story garages, it looks like, but it would be nice to see a comparison in height, since that would form part of the basis for our decision on this one, probably.
I think I'm with you, Klaus. Gut feel is it feels really large, but you can see in some of these pictures, obviously the yellow house, the turquoise house, there are some structures around it that may support its size, the size of this new construction. But I struggle to be able to say, yeah, it's great without knowing kind of what is a little bit where its context is, I guess. The other thing I find interesting is the pergola off to the side. When I first saw that, I didn't know if it was an extra carport or what. But I guess I'm curious about that particular piece too, Mr. Rice, if you don't mind.
Sure.
About that.
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know if there's a shot of the back of the historic structure in the various pictures that you've been flipping through. Right there. So if you look straight to the back, there is an old metal, potentially aluminum awning or cover that, as part of our removal of the vinyl siding and the aluminum storm windows and the aluminum wraps around the windows, we're going to need to take that down as well. And by not putting, I mean, I guess you could go one way or the other on this, but we didn't really have an intention of putting anything back there, but rather having some kind of a quasi covered area coming off of this new garage. But I mean, we can certainly look at making changes to our idea based on the recommendation of the board.
First, the changes to the existing house, are they part of this application? Katie?
I believe we've already done some administrative approvals for removing the vinyl siding and those features. So
Okay,
the only thing that needed to come to the commission was the demo and the new garage.
that's what I assumed. Okay, not really pergola, the trellis. It looks like it's fairly open. It's not really covered, is it?
It is not.
Yeah, it's just
It-
looks like about 6-inch members, and that's it.
Correct. The plan would be to grow maybe some wisteria over it to try to give a sunblock.
Okay.
Okay, back to the question on, have we already approved the changes to the house? Is this?
Sounds like those are administratively approved and maybe a
The
different application.
changes to the house, I'm sorry, the changes to the house have been administratively approved for the removal of the siding, aluminum, that sort of thing, yes.
Those were done on May 20th, and then May 27th was the first day that we could remove.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question on the, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, John.
on the pergola. Is that going to be, is there concrete? Is there going to be a concrete slab below that?
No, that will be a paver.
Okay.
Yeah, what, a paver?
Pavestone, I think, was the brand that we had spec'd in the design.
Do we have oh, pavestone. Oh, it's in the packet. Oh, I see it. Okay. Okay, so that will be, and will it be to size under that pergola?
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm guessing, is the pergola, I don't feel like I have much information on the pergola. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
I feel like I just see a couple just line drawings, but I do apologize. I see the pavestone now. Is it built out of wood? Is it wood?
Yes, it's a wood pergola.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Katie, could you remind us what are the guidelines on pergolas?
Yeah, well, let me see if I can find where they are actually in your staff report. I mean, generally, any kind of, landscape feature or accessory feature like that, the guidelines encourage locating them in a location where they would have typically been historically. So we kind of staff had the reaction that typically you don't see a pergola, particularly in a visible location like that off of a garage. It would probably be more typical to have it off the back of the house or perhaps freestanding kind of in a yard. The guidelines also, I think, do specifically state that you should not add a pergola in a visible location where it did not exist historically. So this would, I think, fall under that category because it is a corner property and that's going to be visible from the side street.
It seems like usually
Beyond that, guidelines talk about pergolas being wood, which this clearly meets that guideline, and certain height requirements and that sort of thing.
I mean, it seems like it'd be, I'm not sure if I necessarily have a big problem with where it's at, but it looks like you've got the patio wrapping around the back. I mean, if you put it behind the garage, it seems like it would meet the guidelines pretty much to the word. Is that correct, Katie? Or
let's see.
except for the part
Yes,
about
it says, do not add a pergola or trellis to a prominent elevation where none historically existed. New pergola is not visible from the public right-of-way, may be constructed in backyards, at rear elevations, or at accessory structures. So yes, I think putting something to the side behind the garage, opposite where the street is, would meet those requirements to reduce the visibility of it and probably provide a little more privacy for that area while you're at it.
Mr. Rice, how would you feel about relocating that particular pergola just for the sake of this conversation?
In complete transparency, the item that is the most important is the extra room above the garage.
Sure.
So I will certainly defer to the committee on any other item, regarding a pergola or what have you. So yeah, absolutely, we would look at modifying that plan for something like that.
I guess where I'm at is I'm certainly not opposed to the 2-story garage, but I think in order for us to make a really good decision, we've got to get some scaling on the properties behind and next to this particular construction site. And so I guess I would suggest a potential continuance to make sure we can get some additional information. Not sure what my other commissioners are.
I support that.
I agree with that. Since you're so flexible, the paved stone pattern is kind of an old world style. It doesn't really seem to fit into a craftsman's house. So maybe something that would be more appropriate for the period might be good.
I can certainly look into that.
This is Katie. Staff had a couple of other concerns that I think were called out in the staff report, that the proposed garage door is a metal door, which the guidelines don't support in Mesta Park. And then I believe the pedestrian door to the garage that's proposed is intended to match the front door on the house. We typically would see not so grand a door on an accessory structure or garage, and thought the commission might want to weigh in on that, especially if we're going to continue, if that door seems appropriate, or if something a little more utilitarian would be more appropriate on a garage.
I agree.
I would say the garage doors. Mr. Rice, are you okay with? Can you use wood doors? And to me,
yes, the door that is on it now is a wood garage door. And when I was thumbing through the packet from when this was approved, I noticed that they got it from Overhead Door, which is where I buy my garage doors for my new homes. So yes, I'm happy to use this same exact door and not change anything. So, and regarding the pedestrian door, yes, the door that you see on the right side of this picture, it's a very simple flush wood door that I think would work perfectly with whatever it is we need to do.
Excellent.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Can I interject real fast? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
This is Fallon Brooks. I'm Chad's designer. I'm the one that put the packet together, so I apologize. I just wanted to make sure, I'm concerned about continuing this because I would hope that if the only concern is the height of the building, I would hope that we could just come to some kind of an agreement where we could maybe, if we could maybe come to an agreement that, like, if the adjacent structure is of a certain height, that we can't exceed that height, or that we can't be within a certain, height range or something. Because I would hate to see this go for another month or two, just for that, because we can certainly, fiddle with the height a little bit fairly easy, or if we could do that in such a way that it could become administratively approved based on height. So I don't know if there's a way that we can do that so that Chad isn't having to wait a couple more months.
Yeah. So my biggest challenge with the height of the structure is it almost, because it's kind of large and significantly wider, it almost looks like a secondary home on a lot.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And so that's why I would like to see a little bit more detail and kind of how the massing of the project looks in comparison with the yellow, the turquoise, and the property that's there, just because of kind of the grand scale of what it could be.
I agree with that. I mean, it's not just the height. There are, some that I think we may have thought better of that are so massive that the neighborhood is just sort of being eaten up. And there are other buildings around these great big buildings and other yards. So I'm very careful about the height and mass of these.
Okay.
This is Katie. I will just note that we do have the ability to approve the demolition separately from the construction of the new garage. And then I believe we also have at least one person that wanted to speak on this item from the public that's participating in the call. Mr. Lewis had indicated to staff that he wanted to call in.
I'm on Zoom actually, Katie. Can you hear me, Katie?
Yes.
I'm on Zoom.
So whenever it's appropriate, if we want to give the public a chance to comment.
Perfect. Mr. Lewis, would you like to comment on the project?
The only thing I'd like to comment on, I think it's great everything that Mr. Rice is doing with the property currently. It's been great. I've lived across from that property for 30 years. And for 30 years, that property has been rental property because the owners that had it originally moved out of state, and we're going to keep the property to move back whenever they got their businesses retired and such, and we're going to move back. So for 30 years, that property's been rental property. And my only concern is that we're going to build a 2-story garage with an apartment. And 2 years from now, if they decide to sell the property, all of a sudden it's rental property again. And it becomes R2, R3 again. And like we just had the adjacent house next to us last week on our last agenda meetings, turned into a duplex. And so it's kind of a common theme, seems like, going in the neighborhood right now. A lot of rental property, and this is supposed to be R1, and so that would be my only concern.
I think that's a valid point, a very, very valid point. Okay. Any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, do we have a motion?
If we're going to continue this, we need to continue to a specific date. And I believe you said next Tuesday is the submission deadline for this upcoming meeting. I guess, is that enough time, or when would you like us to continue this item to, Chad?
Fallon, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I can get you a couple more options before then. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Having everything to you guys by Tuesday should not be a problem.
Okay, perfect. So that would be the July 1st meeting. Okay, so I make a motion to continue HPCA 20-00075 to the July 1st Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillip, second by Linda Schultz. All in favor, please vote. And as we're voting, and I guess we would need a motion for item 4, demolishing the existing non-historic garage as well.
Oh, I apologize. Yep. So I will make a motion to approve HPCA 20-00075 item. So that's probably item 1. Find it.
4.
Oh, item 4. With the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
We have a second on that.
I'll second.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillip, second by John Milner. All in favor, please vote. Okay, item number 4, demolishing the existing non-historic garage has passed. Item number 2, construct 2-story garage and appurtenances is continued to the July 1st meeting. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
If I may, one more question?
Yeah.
So I really don't want to demolish the garage until we get through the continuance. Do I have to do that beforehand, or can I wait on that?
No, you can wait on that. We will issue a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition, and it's good for a year.
Okay.
But you don't have to start on that beforehand. You might be able to get some of the preliminary permitting work underway if you wanted to move ahead on that.
Sure. Okay. That sounds great. That's what I wanted to hear, and we will look forward to talking to you next month.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item D8, HPCA 20000076 at 3312 North Harvey Parkway.
This is in Edgemere Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Britta Thrift for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, install circle driveway elective.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Talk to us about your project.
Sure. Well, I am in the middle of renovating this home for myself to move into personally. It is on a corner lot. It's a very large home, and currently it just has a very short driveway, so short that actually I wasn't even able to get a 30-yard dumpster while I've been working on the project. There is no other parking for the house because of the gradation of the corner lot. There's no way to get into the backyard by the garage or any other way. And so I'm proposing a circle drive, as many of the other homes in the neighborhood have. And I've provided examples of those. It already has a very substantial, thank you, a substantial, sidewalk there. So I would just be actually adding on to what is currently there to provide additional parking. It's directly across from the park, as you can see, and at different times of day, there are lines of cars parked in front of my house, across the street, everyone enjoying the park, which is amazing because that's why one of the reasons I want to move into this home. But I'm astonished actually that the staff was able to get some photos with no cars parked in front, because anytime I go over there, there are numerous cars. So it's very difficult for me to park sometimes even in front of my own house. Around the corner, you would be parking like right at the intersection. And then again, like I said, for such a large house, such large square footage, it doesn't have as deep of a driveway as many of the other homes in the neighborhood do. So it's just, it would be very difficult to get enough cars parked there at any given time. And I have a son who eventually will turn 16 and will have friends coming over. And so part of it is a safety issue as far as just being able to park and not having to get out into traffic coming and going from the house.
Any questions from commissioners on this particular project?
For staff, did the neighborhood have any comments on this?
I don't believe we received any comments from the neighborhood on this application. And we didn't have comments from any other surrounding property owners either.
What was the, Katie, could you just enlighten me on the meaning of not allowing circular drives on the corner lots when the standards were promulgated? I mean, I'm just not sure I understand the historical part. I don't understand what the damage would be, I guess. I'm just trying to figure this out.
I think it's just the visual impact of having that amount of paving in a front yard that would historically have been landscaped. We have lots of areas in neighborhoods that are on either at challenging intersections or they're on streets that have become busier and busier with traffic over the years. And when we get various requests for circle drives and other means of making it easier for people to get in and out of the property. And so I think it's a kind of caution against making changes like that in a way that detract from the historic character of the property.
Okay, because some of those houses over there probably did have circular drives to start with, historically.
Yeah, but in certain, you know, depending on the era in which they were built and that sort of thing, some of them may have had them historically or at least have had them for a very long time.
Okay, I just struggle with not, when the guidelines are that specific for good reason, then I have a tendency to want to support those kind of all the way through for a good reason. So that's kind of where I would end up.
Well, just looking at that photograph right there, first of all, I have lived in Ledgmere Park, and there are a lot of houses, especially along Harvey, that do have drives in front. But just look at that photograph right there. You can imagine a lot. I guess that sidewalk would be taken out, but be replaced by a large paving area and 2 or 3 cars. You know, I understand the function for it, but I think the idea, when it wasn't there historically, and secondly, it's trying to discourage people parking in their front, the front yard of their house. It's too bad that there's not a larger driveway on this house.
Yes, sir. I guess my thinking is, if I may, that instead people are going to be parking on the street, which is that, I mean, is that better than parking on a drive on my own property?
Is there
it's an urban area, so.
Oh, I do understand that. I'm just saying.
On the street, yeah.
Ms. Thrift, is there parking on both sides of Harvey allowed?
Yeah.
Actually, in part of my yard, or you know, part of Harvey across from my house, there is not parking allowed.
But they park there anyhow, probably.
Yeah, sometimes. So it's you know, it can, especially on the weekends, it can get very congested.
I kind of know what that's like because I live across the street from a park. But it's just kind of part of the joy of living across the street from the park, I guess.
I do struggle taking out some of the, you know, quite a bit of the green space in the front yard. I do think that's a pretty view, especially if you're in the park or walking through the neighborhood, wherever the case may be. And the guidelines are pretty strict on this particular item. I guess I'm in favor of sticking with guidelines on this particular project as well, but recognizing that does look like a colossal pain on the side of the house, you know, with a growing family and all of that too.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm looking at the aerial photograph, and the both houses on that block of Harvey Parkway have circle drives in front.
Yes.
And
I guess that's where I'm coming from. It's like actually a majority of the large houses along Harvey, along the park, have circular drives. So
I wouldn't say majority, sorry. I would say majority, but quite a few, especially to the south, where the median is. There's huge ones, but yeah, there's quite a few, especially on your block. There's all the houses have circle drives.
Yes. So in my mind, it's still keeping in line with the rest of the block, the rest of the several blocks around, and I'm proposing such a small, tight curve that I don't think it would, I think there would still be plenty of green space. It would simply just being a little loop around that tree.
So am I correct in saying that that sidewalk then would be removed?
Yes, it would. The driveway would essentially take the place of the sidewalk and then come to the south, closer to the tree. Yes.
One thing that I generally struggle with on something like this is if you've got a sidewalk, and limiting the amount of curb cuts and drives at a sidewalk, just so you don't have to, watch out for cars coming and going as much. In this case, you've got the park across with the sidewalk, and there's no sidewalk, where this drive would go. So I guess that is one consideration. You're not cutting into a sidewalk, which I think would be a positive.
Yeah,
I agree.
From a impact statement, that's a pretty tight circle drive around that tree too. It's not the whole yard, so that helps a little bit. But the guidelines pretty much say not allowed.
Yeah, that's, there is a driveway and parking on the property. The guidelines are pretty strict. It's pretty strict. They're pretty clear in this particular instance. I struggle getting to a place where I could really support it. I feel like everything pushes back on supporting the installation of the driveway.
I'm looking too at the street view here, and I'm assuming maybe a previous owner, but they've got a pretty old school car that seems like it's pretty long. You can fit the two cars because it's kind of similar on the side of the house. There's no sidewalk, so you're not going to be blocking a sidewalk with a car. So what I can tell, if you've got the garage open, you've got 4 parking spots off street, and there's a lot of parking on that side street too. If your son had friends over, I'm sure they're fine, walking, down one house length, to park. Yeah, I don't really see a unique condition for this that would justify overriding the clear guidelines, in my opinion. But
Alan, you're muted.
If it makes any difference, the garage is not very deep, so it's actually not, like, I drive a small SUV, not even like a full size, and it doesn't fit because I guess at some point prior to my ownership, someone used the back part of the garage and added an elevator.
Huh.
You're muted, Alan.
Sorry about that. I was headed backwards. I remember when the previous owner, if we could flip to another view from the front. Yeah, no, one more. That go back. That's fine. We approved the sidewalk plus what the previous owner called a mow strip around the planting beds, which is 2 feet wide. I remember I was kind of against that because it looked to me more like a sidewalk that went around the house.
It does, yes.
Yeah, so it still kind of bothers me, but doesn't excuse a circle driveway though. But
well, I guess I would ask if there's anything that I could change in my plans, or just anything that would allow us to get to a different decision.
You mean a circular drive? It would be hard.
I'm sure you're not gonna. You're definitely not going to approve just a straight shot drive. I was trying to, come up with the most aesthetically pleasing solution.
I mean, frankly, you've come up with probably the most minimal circular drive that you could. I think it's just a matter of whether we allow a circular drive or not. As far as I can tell.
Ms. Thrift, you mentioned something about backyard access. Were you planning on trying to improve that with the circle drive?
No, I just know Ms. Yetter had mentioned that when she and I were originally discussing my application, just that, if I even wanted to get more cars on the property, it's not possible. She had just mentioned that. That's the only reason I brought it up. I'm not planning on trying to park any cars in the backyard.
No, I mean the backyard. I mean, just having access somewhere to the backyard. Do you not have access right now off the driveway?
Into the backyard?
Yeah. Right there?
No.
Is the backyard raised? Is that a retaining wall?
It is. You have to actually go up. You can't see it in that photo, but to the east, or in your photo to the left of the garage, you have to actually go up a spiral staircase to get into the backyard. That garage is it's like down lower than the rest of the house, like as if it was a walkout basement.
Yeah.
This is Angela, and there is no access to the backyard from the other side of the house. I think there's only about 8 feet between the property line and, well, not even that much, I think.
That's
maybe 6 feet.
Correct. I'm sitting here in front of it right now.
You're correct.
There's a gate.
Well, again, I want to be able to approve it. It feels really black and white to me. So I guess, do we have is there anybody else that wants to be heard or needs to be heard with respect to this particular project? And if not, do we have a motion?
Well, can I ask one more question, please?
Absolutely.
Because when the staff says continue it, that was my question when I read it. I don't know how this helps. I just don't know how this helps Ms. Thrift if I continue it, unless there are some ways that we could offer her in which we can't on this circular driveway. So, Katie, what is the best thing to do on this?
So, it never hurts if there's anything at all that could convince the commission or change their mind, or additional information that could be provided, documenting the unique circumstance, then there's always that opportunity to continue it to a future meeting and give the applicant that opportunity. They could always, in the interim, go ahead and withdraw it if they don't want to continue pursuing it. Or they could, bring it back to that future meeting for another round of discussion. So with something like this, where we did see, some unusual conditions at this property and challenges that the property owner is facing with the site, we didn't want to recommend just an outright denial. Wanted to facilitate that discussion. So it's really up to the commission and the applicant if it seems worth continuing it and allowing them to try and provide any other information, or if we think we just can't get there based on what you've seen today.
Do you have any input on that, Ms. Thrift?
I would love the opportunity to try to find any other circumstances that might change your mind.
Well, knowing that it doesn't meet the guidelines.
Sure.
Circular drive. I guess that's my question.
Well, unless there's something creative that Ms. Thrift can think of or come up with in the interim between now and our next meeting that would suggest that there is a specific unique circumstance that we can utilize to, I guess, circumvent the guideline to be at.
Well, but we've already told her there isn't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, that's what I was kind of going with. the backyard access right now. If you want to get anything to the backyard, you have to park on the street, looks to me like. Either go up
Yes.
the steps off the driveway, which would be hard. You'd park on the west, and you'd have to go up that long sidewalk with, you know, I don't know, a piece of equipment or whatever you want to move to
Yeah.
the backyard. I guess where I was thinking of, and I don't know, you guys can shoot us down, but what if there was just sort of a straight driveway along the south driveway, just like every other driveway, just in and out, but there's just no garage on that side. Since there is no driveway on the north, very little, would we allow something that would just be sort of like a
driveway to nowhere?
Well, you'd have to make it look good, but yeah, I guess something that will allow to have access and with a little bit of off-street parking. Just a thought, it wouldn't be a circle drive.
You bring up a good point. I mean, in that case, I would almost just prefer the way it's designed, you know, but you bring up an interesting point that, I mean, I don't know if it's kind of similar to what we've discussed in other projects, but the access consideration that you have several flights of stairs to get up on either side. You know, if you were handicapped or something, I don't know how you get up to the house in that case, in which case, you know, a circular drive would allow you to get into the house without having to go up the stairs.
I'm not sure that backyard access on a historic property
Oh, there is an elevator.
is compelling.
Yeah.
I mean, most houses, most people would want us to shut that off because it'd be a security concern, you know. So it kind of gets us out of our wheelhouse.
I think most backyards have some sort of access.
She does too. This one does too.
There really isn't here. So that's just a point, you know. There's that 2-foot mow strip you could go around.
Right.
Which is, I won't bring that up again.
And I mean, from that standpoint, I guess, I mean, I would be fine with that, but I think from a safety standpoint, it would be better to have, you know, with Harvey Parkway being such a main thoroughfare, to be able to have the circle drive so that you could pull out rather than, you know, pull out going forward rather than having to back out. But I mean, like I said, I'm open to alternatives.
I thought the straight deal might just be a little,
more straightforward.
It wouldn't be right in front of the house, and it wouldn't be quite as much paving. That was my thought.
I appreciate that.
Does the guidelines, Casey, said no circle drives or no driveways?
It specifically says circle drive.
Okay, so there might be a loophole there. But I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, perhaps if we continue this, staff can work with the applicant on, you know, fleshing out other unique aspects of this property, and, you know, properties surrounding the park, that sort of thing, and see if there are any alternatives to the circle drive configuration that would help meet her needs and would also maybe meet the guidelines.
Are you okay with continuing this?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And honestly, I'm hoping to move into this house right in about a month, which right about the same time that you have it. So, I mean, I'm okay because obviously nothing's going to happen with the drive in any way between now and then. I'm okay with actually continuing it to the August meeting.
You want to
consider? I mean, just considering, I heard on the previous item that the deadline is what, next Tuesday?
Yes.
For the July meeting. If staff feels like it's more appropriate to give us a little bit more time, honestly, that would give me a little bit of time to actually move in and live in the house and maybe have a better feel for the unique circumstances as well.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think that's a great idea.
Then I'll make a motion to continue it if it's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear it.
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 20-00076, item 1, install circular driveway within the front yard, to the August
August 5th.
5th meeting.
I second that.
Moved by Linda Schultz, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov. Excellent. So the item is continued to the August 5th meeting. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item D9, HPCA 20000077 at 711 Northwest 17th Street.
This is in Mesa Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Todd Kelly, Reside Home Restoration, for Jamie Kelly for a certificate of appropriateness to 8 demolish carriage house elective and 9 construct new garage elective. And this is a new application that the commission has not seen previously to demolish a presumably historic carriage house structure and construct a new garage.
Perfect. Is the applicant present?
I am.
Awesome. Talk to us a little bit about your project.
Sure. So we live in Mesta Park and we love it so much that we wanted to reinvest in our community. We're restoring the property to resell, and the carriage house has been examined by a structural engineer. He classifies it as structurally unsound, and so we would like to tear it down and put in a modern day garage. We have based our plans off of other garages that share the alleyway, but we are not married to these plans if the committee does not like them.
Questions from fellow commissioners?
Well, let's address the issues.
Linda, did you say something earlier?
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Did you provide us with the engineer's report and I missed it?
The package, it is page 3, I believe. Let me.
Oh, yes, it is. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
And I also received an email from him to further clarify. I'm happy to forward it to anybody who would like to see it. That he would classify it structurally unsound with the potential for collapse with high winds or snow loads.
Are there any photographs of the existing carriage house?
I believe so, within the package.
It is a pretty cool carriage house.
Yeah, it is.
That is, yeah.
Right. I was just thinking it is a unique and I mean, it's a great aesthetic. And I realized I was looking at the existing dimensions of it. Could you, even in the same footprint, convert into a modern garage? It looks like you'd have to widen it a little bit because it's 16 feet deep. That's a little bit narrow for a car. But I'm wondering, if it's in as bad a shape as a structural engineer says it is, and I'll have to look at that a little bit closer, but it'd be interesting to see if there's a way to, at least match the general form and massing of the current carriage house. But
Okay.
that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay, I'm not seeing the photographs of the existing carriage house in my packet.
It's in
the application.
And to your point, sir, the carriage house is literally about to fall on its own. I fear for my life when I go in there. So.
It looks a little bit rickety from the pictures. So.
Certainly looks like it's in a little bit of disrepair.
Sure.
Alan, the photos of the carriage house start just after the Sanborn maps.
Yeah, I just
You're
found
looking
it. I'm
at the-
sorry. I was looking
Okay.
at the normal photographs on the attachment. Doesn't the application say to replicate or to, thought I saw something on the new garage, my point is, doesn't have the character of the existing carriage house.
Alan, was that a question or a statement?
It was both.
Oh, that's true.
And staff finding does say new garage shall approximate the original configuration, form, massing, style, placement, and detail. And I think the applicant said they're going to try to emulate some of the other ones that have been built recently, not necessarily the existing carriage house.
There are 6 other garages in the alleyway, and having never done this before, we weren't exactly sure what you were looking for. And so we honestly just mimicked other garages in the alleyway that we know have been approved. But we are definitely open to changing the plan if that's what we need to do.
Personally, I would love it to mimic more of what is on the property now and in the existing carriage house, as opposed to mimicking something else that has been constructed, just because I do think that does have a lot of historical significance. I think it's really cool. I think it's interesting. And I think it's obviously appropriate too. So I would be in favor of potentially revised designs that mimic more of what we have here, but something that is a little more modern to fit vehicles and things of that nature as well.
Okay, may I ask which features of the current carriage house that you would like to see on a revised plan?
Well, not knowing what the other houses in the alleyway look like, I guess I just think the footprint, kind of the structure, the way that it's put together now would make a whole lot of sense. Just potentially a little bit longer to fit a car, or maybe a little wider to fit a car, as Klaus noted.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm looking at like the elevation, I'm not sure if that is maybe that's the west elevation, kind of the shorter elevation with the gable. It just has really nice proportions, the way the windows are kind of stacked. We have a larger window on the first floor and a larger window on the second floor. If you made it a little bit deeper to fit a car, but just a kind of general massing and I think it has nice proportions. So maybe try to keep the similar proportions, but expand it maybe slightly to fit a vehicle.
Okay.
And maybe as far as square footage, if you had to make it a little bit deeper from 16 to let's say 20 or something to fit a car, you can probably shorten it a little bit maybe so it doesn't take up as much space or any more space. But anyway, just some thoughts. I can't,
We want to have the overall aesthetics that this one has too. Because really, when you're talking about making it fit a car, one of these is probably just a few feet one way or another, right? So it would just be the general design.
The
carriage house
guidelines kind of says it, the original configuration, form, massing, style. So
if I may, as I mentioned, we live in Mesta Park and our garage is 21 feet deep and my husband cannot pull his truck in the garage.
we've heard this before.
I'm afraid 20 feet would not be deep enough.
Well, I think if you just work on the design, it's hard for us to answer about a hypothetical design. You know what I mean? I mean, we can sort of give you general guidance.
Well, I'll make one comment. This has come up before. We have a 450 square foot footprint guideline. And historically, these garages were not designed for Ford F-250s. Just fact of life.
No.
A commissioner who's not here today would say you kind of know that when you buy a historic house that you can't put your pickup truck in the garage, you know, so it's not a unique circumstance in order to get a 600 square foot garage. Just want to point that out. That's been brought up before.
Okay, so the garage that's directly adjacent is in the alleyway is 720 square feet. And
we don't know the past history of that garage. It's when it was built, but that does not meet the guidelines.
it was approved by HP in 2016.
Katie?
Well, and quite honestly, it's very challenging for us to comment on previous cases. There might have been unique circumstances at that time specific to that particular property that required or called for something that was a little bit larger. But we try and look at these on a case-by-case, property-by-property basis. Obviously, there's some questions that, but sorry. Linda,
This is Katie. I think a couple of, this is Katie. I think there are a couple of things. We can certainly look with the applicant at surrounding garages and any sort of, other conditions that we can identify. I think we have in the past, one other thing that we have done in the past, when someone was trying to very closely approximate the look of a historic garage, especially when it was a historic garage that was shallow, is we've given some leeway on that square footage limitation in order to maintain the proportions of the garage, so the width of it, while letting it get deep enough to accommodate a typical vehicle, maybe not the extended cab F-150, but a standard, parking space, especially with these really old ones that are carriage houses that are often not deep enough. So I think there are several aspects of the character of the carriage house that could be incorporated into a new design, and ways to kind of evaluate that, in the interim of a continuance, staff can work with the applicant on those.
Okay.
You okay? That?
We could, just like we did with the prior case, we could act on the demolition if the commission's comfortable with that.
I'd like to see it, actually. If the staff hasn't been out there.
Yeah, I think we were, especially with the public health situation, we didn't really want to overstep into people's property. With photos this month, we tried to just stay kind of on the public right of way and what we could see from the street. Are you saying, Linda, you'd like to see additional photos of the garage?
Well, I'm not sure about demolition that's.
If we're going to suggest emulating the existing garage, I suggest that the existing garage be documented pretty well before it is demolished.
Mm-hmm.
Photographically.
Well, and it would be great to have a copy of that structural engineer's report included in the file and be able to see a copy of that. I don't think that I've seen that in what we have so far.
I said that too, but it's in there.
Perfect. Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, Metro Engineering, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if the structural engineer's report is in the file, I guess, especially during some of this COVID-19 stuff that we're dealing with, I'm comfortable with this type of documentation indicating that it is in disrepair.
All of the garages are in disrepair, and I don't think I've ever seen a structural engineer on any historic building not say it was
So cynical.
Demolished. So and a lot of them have been here for 100 years. So I
am happy to entertain a motion.
Yeah. Okay, so on which one?
I think we probably ought to take demolishing the carriage house first and then constructing the new garage kind of contingent upon that.
Real quick, before we take a vote on this, Alan, I think, had mentioned if we're going to suggest approximating the existing carriage house, I'm not sure how well it is documented besides photos, but I don't see any kind of real dimensions or elevations or anything. Is that something that we think is worth continuing so that the carriage house can be properly documented and just continue everything, or do we feel that's something that we approve and move on?
I think it could be approved with the condition that that be submitted to staff.
Okay.
Or if the applicant's not in a hurry to move forward with the demolition, then we could continue the entire, the whole application.
Well, that's a loaded question. We are investing a lot of money in this property. The whole thing is in disarray, and the longer that we wait to move forward, the more it costs us to do the house. And I would like to go ahead and have approval for demolition, but I understand the importance of the documentation. So I'm up for whatever the committee decides.
Well, I'll make a motion on, if that's all right, Chair.
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion on HPCA 20-00077. Item 8, demolish carriage house. With the condition that prior to demolition, the applicant submits documentation of the existing carriage house, including elevations and dimensions of windows and roof height and kind of everything that is necessary to properly document that property. And with a specific finding that based on the engineer's report, the carriage house is in disrepair and a danger to the community.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Moved by Klaus Fryman Phillip, second by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote on item 8. Okay, the demolition is approved with the conditions as noted by Commissioner Phillip and all those noted in the staff report. How about item 9, constructing the new garage?
I'll make a motion to continue item 9 on HPCA 20-00077 to the, did we say the July 1st meeting? Is that acceptable?
For me, yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, then to that July 1st meeting.
And Jamie, are you able to get the updated information over to the HP Commission or over to staff before then?
As far as a new design plan?
Yes, by Tuesday of next week?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, sorry. We have a second on that.
We would need plans, elevations, more than just a plan, but I'll second that.
So moved by Klaus Fryman Phillip, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov. Okay. Second motion passes, moving item 9, constructing the new garage to the July 1st commission meeting.
May I ask one more question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to be sure I do everything right. So will everything you want from me be sent to me in writing, or can I have it in writing somehow?
Katie,
We will record all of those conditions in the minutes, and the meeting will also be available online for viewing, and then we can confirm with you, staff can confirm with you via phone call, email, exactly what all is needed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 10, HPCA 20-00078 at 201 Northwest 20th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Catherine Montgomery, Preservation and Design Studio for Miles Mixon, Revive Design Build for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace and widen the garage door via alteration of the east facade, elective, 2, remove east window at garage, elective, 3, replace driveway at detached garage, elective, and 4, replace fences, elective, 5, replace driveway at attached garage at west side of house, elective.
Excellent. Do we have a
Yes.
citizen present? Perfect.
Can
Talk to
you
us
hear
about the
us?
project.
So Catherine Montgomery here for the client and
Miles Mixon with Revive Design Build.
And Zeb Gotro with Revive.
Excellent.
and we're here to answer any questions you might have and respond to some of the findings that are in the staff report.
Perfect. You want to talk to us a little bit about your project and what you guys are getting ready to do, and any concerns with the findings in the report?
So as you know, this property has been undergoing a pretty extensive restoration, and you have seen it come before you a couple of other times for certificates of appropriateness. The work continues. We have 2 driveways on this property, and we have a garage that faces Robinson. If we take the items in the order in which they're in the staff report, which is the fence, staff is recommending approval, so I don't really see any items to discuss there. And then the next item would be the replacing the garage door. The garage faces Robinson, and some of the things that staff has brought up has to do with the design of the proposed door, and we're happy to change that design. We kind of submitted this one to see if it would fly, and if it doesn't, that's fine. We're happy to change the design. We'd like to keep it 1 door because maneuverability is very tight. You can see that there's a public street light that inhibits the ability to widen the driveway approach. And so it needs to remain, the maximum distance that it can be is, let's see what we've got here. The maximum width we can get out of that is about 8 feet, 8 inches. It's currently almost 7 feet, and that's including the curbs. So really effectively it's 6 feet. So then once it crosses the sidewalk, we've proposed increasing the width of it so that a car could park on either side of that garage, which is big enough for 2 cars. We've already proposed that we would use a wood door, so that finding on page 7 is fine. I mean, that's what we proposed. I think the biggest issue here is whether or not the window that is on that east face is significant enough to warrant not making it a double wide garage door. And I can let you know that in the photographs that we provided, page number, 12 of attachment A. The window is no longer exists, and that thing that's painted dark there is a piece of
It's like felt board.
it's like felt board, according to Miles. So it's not really a window anymore anyway. So that's what we've got on that one. Then we move on to the driveway on the south, which, Preservation and Design Studio drew this up a little wider than what it currently is, because we were advising our client that that little bit of land between the driveway and the house was kind of a liability for them. The house has had significant termite damage that has had to be addressed, and we would like to keep the foundation from getting wet and wanted the concrete to go all the way to the house and slope any runoff away from the house. So that's why we had proposed making it wider.
I'm okay.
Hey, Catherine, that driveway on the west, where does it go?
Well, this was at some point that the driveway on the south, you mean?
Well, okay. I turned around.
Yeah, so that was a garage. That's a garage. That was a garage
Done in the 20s.
that was added a long time ago.
So on the west?
Yes.
There's a garage. I just can't see in the pictures what's over there.
They had previously approved that though.
So that the refurbishment of that part of the house was approved previously. And now we're just, wanting to replace the driveway. Part of the driveway needs to be taken up, besides the fact that it's, broken up. It needs to be taken up because that's where their water line needs to come in, and that's kind of delaying their project right now. So they really want to have some resolution to that. So they're willing to keep the driveway under 10 feet, which at this point, it really only increases to 10 feet, 4 inches near the back. Otherwise, it was 10 feet wide.
We also wanted to stop right here at the front porch.
Is that your preference?
Yes. Either or. Just past the front porch. So if there's any steps, just like right here.
They would also be willing to stop that driveway just past the front porch.
On the one on the west?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's 2 columns that stick up there, so that would be past those 2 columns.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then that would just be turf. So then they wouldn't be having concrete beyond that point.
So the plan shows concrete basically going all the way up to the wall of the house?
Where yes, because there was a garage door there.
There was, that's right, okay. And so now we would stop it short, okay.
I've talked to the neighbor about just filling all this in, zero scaping for drainage.
There's also drainage issues with that the house to the west shares with this property. So actually not having the concrete on that northern portion would be helpful for both properties. Okay, so should we keep going, or you want to stop on that?
Keep going.
Okay.
This is Katie. I just wanted to make sure I understand that we're talking about not continuing the driveway all the way back to the structure, stopping it at the columns?
Stopping it just north of the columns past the front porch.
And then what?
It would just be turf.
Landscape.
Landscaping.
So it goes up to the back column.
So if you look at page 1 of our drawing set, you can see that the existing driveway is 7 feet 5 inches wide and extends all the way back to where we currently are showing it on the proposed driveway.
It looks like it's almost similar in plan, except you guys are just adding a few inches in the back. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, we're just trying to, actually we're just trying to concrete the area between the existing driveway and the house, but we are taking it about 6 inches closer to the 6 inches wider on the west side.
And what is that concrete for?
it's just an existing drive,
That's
correct?
Replacing existing concrete, I believe.
We don't have to do that.
So I'm sorry, what, Taylor?
Was that's replacing existing, the 7.5 foot drive that's there, removing that to just a 10-foot drive where it currently sits, correct?
Yeah, so the concrete that's there needs to be replaced. There's no question.
Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of, do we go back with 7 foot 5 inches, which is really not usable, or can we make it wider? And so we wanted to make it wider. We recognize that 10 feet is the maximum width available for administrative approval. And in this particular instance, the way the driveway kind of bends a little bit back to the back, you know, it gets to be a little bit wider than 10 feet.
Yeah, because there's a
So-
bump out there, it looks like, from the house. So you kind of have that curve, that radius to get around that if you're parking.
If you're parking, that's
And you
correct.
got, so I mean, yeah, personally, I
Care
don't
about
really
paving
see
it
any,
up.
I don't personally see any issues with that, but although my,
I mean,
other
actually,
commissioners
the
might.
client would prefer not to have to put back all the concrete that's there now.
Because it's gonna be hard to pull a car between those columns anyways.
Yeah.
I guess I'm pretty comfortable with obviously replacing the fence. I'm comfortable with replacing the west driveway with the wider driveway, and even if it goes to 10.4 inches, I'm pretty comfortable replacing the east driveway. The one thing that I would love some consideration on is going to 2 doors as opposed to 1 door. And you guys have already mentioned that you don't have to have a high style door there, which is great. But what are your thoughts there on a 2 door as opposed to a single larger door?
As you can see, by our drawing number 4, which shows the new proposed driveway, you can see how tight the approach has to be, just because we're up against the north property line on the right, and then the existing light pole, which is that circle near where we have the radius line measurement. That's an existing light, city light fixture. So we are deliberately holding the radius on the south side so that we don't get any closer to that light pole. That gives us about 8 feet 8 inches as we cross the sidewalk. And then we have a very tight turn and only about 20 feet to be able to maneuver to get over and use the south side of the garage, the existing garage. So that being said, that's why we proposed 1 garage door. We can make it look like 2 garage doors, as other garage doors are.
Carriage style, whatever.
Yeah.
So
But just to maneuver, the whole door is going to have to open if we're going to be able to get a car in there.
I've seen the 2 garage door, or the single garage door that looks like 2 garage doors, and I would probably be comfortable with that, but I'm very curious what my fellow commissioners would think of that as well.
Well, I kind of agree with the maneuverability issue. There's a light pole there, so it's pretty hard to get and there's really not that much depth either. So I agree with the single door, and yeah, if it was made to look like it wasn't one single door, probably be more appropriate.
I agree with the single door as well. And I actually think it seems like there was an earlier application where there was maneuverability issue and a tight radius, and it was our suggestion on going to a single door to help with that maneuverability. It does look tight back there.
Yeah.
I guess this garage is about as minimum as you can, width wise, you can make a garage, which is existing, of course. So, so I think, yeah, I'm glad that the garage is staying, and I think that double door or that wider door is a good compromise. I'm actually just looking at the street view, and it looks like your neighbor to the north has a garage with a double door as well, like that. So I do appreciate that you guys kept the drive a narrower width where it crosses the sidewalk, and then you expand it beyond that. I think it's always nice when you don't have to walk across, that wider drive, if at all possible. So I'm glad you had the depth there to do it, and I think that's nice.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Any other, or the neighborhood? Warn everybody out. Do we have a motion? Or have we talked about everything that we needed to talk about? And I guess do we have a motion?
This is Katie. I just wanted to ask one more question, sorry, as staff. And I may just have missed something in the proposal, but as far as not continuing the west driveway all the way back to the structure, I think we would just need a revised site plan that shows exactly where that paving is going to stop. Unless Catherine, is that something that we already have and I'm not seeing it here?
No, we would be happy to modify that and send it to you.
And then I just wanted to call out that widening that driveway all the way up to the stem wall of the house is going to fill in a little inset along the side of the porch, which is what we reviewed on a very similar proposal earlier today and continued and asked him to consider alternatives for addressing drainage issues. So obviously we review all of these case by case, but I just want to make sure we're consistent in how we evaluate filling in those little niches with paving.
Well, I see
Sure.
a little difference there, this Alan, that they're just talking about going right past the pilasters. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there's really not much to fill in there. It doesn't look to me like, is there? Or
No.
am I missing something?
Let's see if,
Well, Katie, it's kind of tough to tell because I didn't see anything being filled in based on the existing plan. It kind of looks from the site plan that it's up against the wall, but that might be the roof overhang shown obscuring what's happening.
There are, so the footprint, let me see.
I think you're right, Klaus.
If you look at the county assessor footprint on the just after the application page in your attachments, you can see that there's the front porch, and then it goes straight back along the side of the front porch, and then there's a little bump out, little 4-foot bump out.
Mm-hmm.
There's steps that extend out from the front porch, and then between those steps and that bump out, there is a little, what looks to be right now, landscaped, unpaved area, I'll say. So we would be, as I understand it, filling in that area between the front steps and the driveway.
Yeah, it looks like about
this
30
part right
inches.
here.
Like about 30 inches.
That's fine.
The existing plan shows 7'5" from pilaster to, I guess it is the overhang. And then the other one shows 10 feet from the pilaster to the wall. So there's about 30 inches there of something that they're infilling. You're right.
That's a good point because, yeah, from that first site plan, it looks like it's up against a house, but I think that's a roof overhang.
That's correct.
That drive, so, yeah.
So our primary goal would be to just take the concrete to the north of that little column that's on the west side of the driveway, to the north of the north column, which is that little square on sheet 1. And so wherever that happens, that gets us past the front porch, which would be our goal.
Personally, I mean, you're reducing the paving by quite a bit, by by taking off that back half of the paving. I mean, I don't think, since we are reducing the pavement by such a large amount, I don't have as big a problem with that on this case, but I don't know if anyone else has any comments on that.
You're saying you're okay with infilling that?
Well, I think because if you look at the I guess right now that's 7.5 feet wide, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and if you look at our drawing 2, which shows the new layout, it shows that you have about 10 feet between the corner of the house and those columns that stand to the west of the driveway. And
Yeah, I see
this
that.
footprint is to scale. We field measured all of that. So if you compare it to the county's drawing, the front 12 feet of the house is right there, and then you can see that 4-foot bump out. So if we stop the driveway short, we won't even get close to the 4-foot bump out.
We're talking about the width of the driveway, filling in from the pilaster all the way over to the house.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about, not north, but to the east.
Well, and both, we're talking about cutting it short north of that north
Wait a
column.
second, are there steps there?
There are steps to the porch.
We're approved to pour those back.
Yeah, the steps aren't shown on your proposed west driveway plan that I can see.
No, they're not there, you're right.
So what you're doing basically is filling in all of the area from the pilasters over to the house, including around the steps. Is that right?
I think I agree with you.
Yeah, so right now there's a little strip of probably a planting bed on either side of the steps or something. There's no photograph that shows that area that I can see.
We might need some more information to make a decision on that portion because I'm not sure that I'm a little confused on what the condition is. I guess it looks like the steps extend onto the porch. So like in a proposed west driveway, those steps would be in that gray area, correct?
Yeah, so we already have a CA for the steps.
Yeah.
And I know that we have a photograph that we did not include with this package that's shooting right down that driveway. If the commission can approve that we don't have to take this driveway all the way back, that we can end it at the north side of that column, then we can provide for Katie, because this, at 10 feet wide, it still fits the definition for staff approval. So obviously anything less than 10 feet is also going to meet that definition. So we could provide for Katie whatever drawing is necessary to for the profile of that west side.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to see the layout of that area under where the steps are, around the steps. We did just talk about not paving over the side yard, but it's a plus not paving all the area to the north. So
this is a little bit different condition because on the other house, it was literally, it was 3 feet to the neighbor, and then there was a drive there. In this case, it's, there's still some space between the neighbor and the drive, and this is up, I think this is a little bit of a different condition. I don't know if we can exactly equate it to, that other project we discussed.
no, it's not exact. I agree.
Yeah.
But it's funny, we talked about that. It'd be nice to see,
Right.
what it would look like. The planting would be nice.
So all we're going to do is tie the drive to the porch. So if there's little pieces of plant bed or whatever on either side, then we're happy to leave them there.
I just think somebody needs to look at the layout.
Well, Katie, maybe you can clarify on this. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a problem shortening it per se, but I'm trying to figure out what is administratively approvable and what isn't. I mean, you haven't really shown shortening the driveway. I mean, I don't have a problem with that in theory, although, it's not depicted. And then as far as the drive, if that's something Katie could approve anyway, if we didn't take any action on that, you know.
Well,
So it's hard to say what we could administratively approve without looking at the site plan. I think I have a good idea of what we're all talking about, but it's hard to say definitively, oh yes, we can administratively approve all of this. I mean, certainly we can administratively approve widening a driveway up to 10 feet, although when we start looking at filling in insets and going up to the stem wall, that's something that, as you've seen, we typically take to the commission.
correct.
To be honest, I would typically take to the commission a proposal to not replace the whole driveway, because that's not the historic appearance, to have a driveway that doesn't go all the way to the garage. If it's approved with conditions attached to it for, you know, a site plan to be submitted to staff, that sort of thing, then we can handle that. But I would rather have at least some direction from the commission on what you want to see the final product look like than to just defer it for an administrative approval.
Well, just speaking for me personally, it's kind of tough to give that specific direction, because I have a hard time, you know, we don't have any documentation of the exact current condition, I feel like, or photo or anything, so.
So maybe we ought to have them come back with a plan for that west driveway.
So here's what we really need on this, is this project has taken a really long time, and this is the last thing. And we need to be able to pull that concrete up as soon as possible and replace that water line, and then pour the concrete and have the guy come out on one day and get it all done. So whatever we need to do to get an approval on this west driveway, we're happy to do. We were just suggesting that if the extra width, which is 10'4", back towards the back of the driveway is unacceptable, we can make it less than 10 feet. We can forego pouring that concrete behind that second column altogether. Those were just ideas for options, because we need to get some kind of approval today, and we're happy to, we're trying to be very flexible to make that happen.
This is Katie. One option would be to do an approval for replacement in kind, and then very quickly turn around with a revision to that approval with showing what your desire is. And then you could have the, I mean, does that help, or you need?
Yeah, because then you could administratively approve a slight change.
Right.
Yes, that's great. Perfect.
So we could approve this today with the condition that you replace in kind, and then you could turn around and submit a revision, an application for a revision to staff, and we can work towards something that we can administratively approve.
I'm okay with that, but still putting all the responsibility into your lap, Katie.
Well, and if it's, I mean, if it's something that's beyond what has been discussed here and doesn't seem appropriate, then we would still have the option to bring a revision back to the commission. But that would at least give them the ability to move forward with demoing the driveway.
Yeah.
And at that point, if they felt that they needed to move forward with the project, they always have the option to replace in kind. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does replace in kind mean material or the length of the?
As is.
It means all aspects of the driveway as it is now, the same width, the same configuration, material. Yep.
Okay.
So it would be the length that is, I mean, it would go as far back as it does now.
Right.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Huh?
Well, yeah.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
Or do we have any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project too? Okay.
All right, then I will make a motion to approve HPCA 20-00078. Items 4, replace fence with the specific findings as noted in the application staff report. Items 1 and 2, as noted in the staff report, I know we discussed it being wood, but I believe that that was all. I think we've discussed that. Items 2, replace and widen the east driveway with the specific findings as noted in the staff report. And item 5, replace and widen west driveway. And you might have to help me out here with the condition that the applicant provide additional information to staff, including a site plan of proposed changes.
And that they're going to replace that in kind for now,
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah, right. That they will, with the condition that they replace it in kind, and I guess they'll issue a revision to staff. So.
How about item 3, replace driveway at the detached garage?
Did I miss that one? Hold on. Where is that? Oh, I missed that one. Yes, and item 3, replace driveway at detached garage. Yep. I think that's all of them. Is that all of them?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by John Milner. All in favor, please vote on Prime Gov. Looks like we're looking for votes for Klaus and Ann.
I apologize. I made a motion,
Okay.
but then I can't vote on it.
Exactly. Okay, well, motion passes, and thank you guys for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, last one today. Item D11, HPCA 20-00079 at 717 Northwest 41st Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Hallie Reeves for Betsy Brunstetter for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition elective, and 2, install window at rear of dwelling elective. This is a new application that the commission hasn't seen yet. Staff did recommend approval, just with a condition regarding making sure we have all of the accurate and fully dimensioned floor plans, site plans, et cetera.
Let's see. I think some of the notes that we have is, or that I have is this appears to be a pretty modest addition on a corner lot. It doesn't look like it's anything crazy, but as Katie noted, a full site plan for certificate of appropriateness and permits would obviously be very, very helpful. But talk to us a little bit about your all's project.
So I lived in this house for 26 years. Actually, my daughter, who is right here, was with me at most of that time. And we downsized, came before you last year to move to another house. And timing was just right that Hallie and her husband decided that if they can get some more space in the house, it would be a great place for them to live, maybe for at least as long as we did. So if you look at this elevation, the interesting thing about this house is that every elevation has a Tudor element to it, except for this one. And this one is very austere. When we first bought the house, without the tree in the middle, it kind of looks institutional. And so they needed a bigger kitchen. They cook. We didn't. Anybody that's been in our house knows that the kitchen is extremely awkward and small. And so the addition is actually mostly a kitchen. It has a bedroom and little space to sit in, and a bathroom that is on the ground floor, which is to Hallie because she used to watch her grandmother struggle to get to a bathroom that is on a different floor. That's about it. We chose to do it in a Tudor motif to really kind of set it apart as the guidelines require. We did join the roof slope, which you cannot see in this photograph, but it has a little curve to it. I don't know what that's called. Alan might be able to give me it. You can't see it in any picture. So you can see it in the elevations that I drew, but so we tied the roof together just on that one eastern slope, and did another gable, open gable, and tried to be as consistent as possible with windows and doors. We did end up taking out the window that's up above the kitchen. If you see on that flat elevation closest to us, there's a second story window that is actually an aluminum window. And then don't know if there's anything else to address it. Do we want to change to the drawings, or is that even possible? Or you guys have them?
We don't have drawings. They have it in their packets, but we don't have drawings in the PowerPoint.
Okay.
I guess if I could add something, so I'm coming from sort of a city planning, thinking about what's happening in the neighborhood. All of the other houses on the corners have additions, and so this is not without precedent.
Any questions from commissioners?
I think it's nicely designed. I appreciate your approach to design, setting it apart, but it's still, I think it relates to the house well. So I don't see anything specific other than, meeting the condition that you provide the site plan to staff, for the inclusion of the certificate. And of course, if staff has any questions on that, it would just come back to the commission.
Any other questions? Any other citizens that wish to be heard? Any motions for this particular project?
No one else has anything. I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 20-00079 with the specific findings and conditions as noted in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Alan Brown. All in favor, please vote on PrimeGov.
I wanted to tell you guys, thanks so much for your time on this. We've been impressed with the care you've taken on every single case.
It is a labor of love.
Yeah. It's been
John and Ann, looks like we're waiting on your all's approval.
I don't, mine says waiting.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I think Ann had to leave us. I don't think Ann's on the meeting at this time. And we can do a verbal vote from John if at this last case PrimeGov decided to not cooperate.
I'm sorry.
John, how would you like to vote?
I vote yay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
There it is.
Okay,
There it goes.
motion passes.
Medial.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, so that's everything in item D, cases for individual consideration. Let's see, item 7. Katie, any other business we need to discuss?
No other business.
Okay. Item 8, communications and reports.
We have a hefty list of administrative approvals. Happy to answer questions about that tomorrow if anyone has questions about administrative approvals. Seriously, feel free to send us an email anytime if you see something administratively approved and you want to know more about it or what's going on. We have 2 withdrawals. Those are typically just so that people understand what that is. It's often someone who submits an application, works with staff for a while, and maybe decides not to proceed with that project or never does get all their documentation turned in. Under C, City Council, we did want to make everyone aware of a couple of things. On May 26th, the Council reviewed for the first time a proposed revision to Chapter 60, which is where all of our fees are housed, to revise fees for historic districts as well as all of our design review districts. For HP districts, administrative approvals will actually go down a little bit to $75. Commission review without any construction involved will go up to $150 instead of $100, and commission review with new construction would go up to $200. This is still well below the administrative cost of running these programs, but is a little bit more in keeping with kind of the scope of administrative work as well as the scope of the projects that are being reviewed. And obviously this is a budgetary matter as well. And then for the other design districts, those fees will adjust as well. And those are usually for larger commercial projects. We've included a link here if you'd like to look at that ordinance with those fees, but that will go back to council for a hearing on June 9th and then adoption on, this says June 23rd. I was thinking it was the 16th, but we'll double check that and let you know when those hearing dates are. Preserve OKC is scheduled to be heard and received by City Council. That's what they do with amendments to the comprehensive plan. At their June 23rd meeting. They will receive the plan as an amendment to the comprehensive plan, Plan OKC, and they will adopt the official position on historic preservation by resolution. So again, we'll let everybody know those dates for sure as that's moving forward. I would say come to the meeting, but I'm sure it'll be video conference. So, tune in if you're interested, and we'll just keep you informed on how that proceeds. And that's all for those items.
Okay, anything for item D, Board of Adjustment, E, Planning Commission, or Rita from the Municipal Counselor's Office?
Nothing, you guys did a great job again today.
Okay. Well, our next meeting, ooh, feedback there. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 1st, 2020 at 2 p.m. New applications for this meeting will need to be received by June 2nd, 2020. And new information on projects continued from today's meeting for the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th. Next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, June 10th from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. That takes us to, let's see, item number 9. Any items from commissioners that wish to be heard today?
Oh, I've got a question. Are we really going to have a workshop?
I was just going to interject. So I was actually supposed to be at a conference in Minnesota that week, and instead I'm going to take a little bit of time off, spend even more quality time with my family that I've been quarantined with for 3 months because we can't get enough of each other. Exactly. So I think we will not have a workshop. We may see if, within the next couple of months, we can have one in person with some social distancing. I think it's hard to do that kind of thing via video conference. Yeah, but if you want to send me an email if there's anything in particular that over these last couple of months or weeks you think would be a good workshop topic. We're happy to try and address those kinds of things. And John, you've never been on when we've had workshops. We usually do these approximately quarterly. It's usually over the lunch hour. We feed you guys when we have the budget to do that, and do kind of a deeper dive into any issues the commission's having. If there's a certain type of application we're seeing a lot of and people want to kind of explore the related guidelines, if there are guidelines that we think might need to be revised. We've used workshops to talk about properties that we want to pursue designating as historic landmarks, all different issues like that relevant to the commission. So just think on that. Let me know if there are any topics that come to mind for you all.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Any other commissioners? Okay.
There you
Any
go. I'm
citizens that
sorry,
wish to be
I was
heard?
on mute.
Class?
I got one quick thing. Kind of tying into the workshop. I know we're not going to have one next month, but a couple items I think might be interesting to discuss is Plan OKC and Preserve OKC and the upcoming zoning code update, and maybe how those can kind of overlap and how they can support each other. You know, it's kind of maybe an open discussion on what that might look like with historic preservation neighborhoods, but with a potential code update and not Preserve OKC, Plan OKC. That's one item that might be interesting. The other one is, you know, this is a topic that comes up from time to time, the colored concrete, and whether you stain it to match or whether, you know, you leave it. And I guess walking through the neighborhood, I just been kind of thinking about it. When you stain something, you know, the stain's always going to be different, you know, but after a few years, concrete unstained is going to age naturally. Anyway, I think it might be interesting just to discuss the guidelines on staining concrete versus not staining concrete. But anyway, those are just a couple things that came to mind.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, good. Any citizens that wish to be heard? Hearing none, I believe we can adjourn the meeting. We don't need I can never remember. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
I think we're just adjourned, right?
Okay, we're adjourned.
Right, motion.
There was a motion.
I heard somebody say it.
No, I said no motions required. This is Katie.
Well, I will tell you guys, so I guess my fans and AC were on a timer here, and about 5:30 fans shut off and the AC went off. So I felt like I was back at the horseshoe. That made me feel like I was at home, but I got them back going again and we're in good shape.